Welcome to Monkey DFIC. Today we bring you an unforgettable story how Luffy became the Pirate King in just 1 year. Loving our content? Smash that like button and join our family by subscribing. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Now, let the story begin. Chapter 1, The Key to Laugh Tale. The morning sun hit the Thousand Sunny's deck as Luffy stretched his arms toward the sky, his trademark grin plastered across his face. The crew had barely escaped Wano, the memories of their victory against Kaido still fresh. Most of them were sprawled across the deck, enjoying the momentary peace after weeks of intense fighting. Guys! Luffy shouted suddenly, jumping onto the ship's railing with boundless energy. We're gonna find the One Piece this year. Nami rolled her eyes, not bothering to look up from her map. You say that every week, Luffy. No, for real this time. Luffy hopped down and pulled a small leather-bound book from his back pocket. Look what Yamato gave me before we left. Robin's eyes widened as she recognized the object. Is that Kazuki Oden's journal? Yep. The complete version. Luffy tossed it to her. Yamato said there were parts they never showed us. Secret stuff about the road poneglyphs and Laugh Tale. Robin caught the journal with care, her usually calm demeanor giving way to visible excitement. Her fingers traced the worn edges before she carefully opened it. The crew gathered around her, even Zoro abandoning his nap to see what the commotion was about. Yamato kept this hidden? Robin asked, already flipping through the pages. Said it was too dangerous, Luffy replied, bouncing on his heels. But they decided we earned the right to see it after beating Kaido. Robin's fingers stopped on a page filled with strange markings. This is incredible. These aren't just notes about the road poneglyphs. These are cipher keys. Cipher what? Luffy tilted his head. Keys, Robin explained, her eyes never leaving the page. Oden discovered patterns in how the poneglyphs were created. With these notes, I might be able to deduce the location of Laugh Tale without needing to physically visit all 4 road poneglyphs. Sanji nearly dropped his cigarette. You're saying we can skip ahead? Just like that? Not exactly, Robin replied. We still need the content from each road poneglyph, but I may not need to see them in person. If I have reliable transcriptions, these cipher keys could help me decode them correctly. Nami suddenly sat upright. Wait. We already have rubbings from 2 road poneglyphs, the one from Zou and the one from Whole Cake Island. And we found the one in Wano, Frankie added, crossing his massive arms. That leaves just one more, Brook said, his skeletal fingers tapping against his cane. Luffy punched his fist into his palm. Then it's settled. We find that last road poneglyph, Robin does her magic reading thing, and boom, Laugh Tale. Usopp chewed his lip nervously. It can't be that easy. If it was, someone would have found One Piece already. Actually, Robin said, her voice dropping to a more serious tone, according to Oden's notes, there's something else. The 4 road poneglyphs aren't just coordinates. They're a key to something called the Eternal Tide, a current that only appears once every 50 years and leads directly to Laugh Tale. The crew fell silent. And when's the next one due? Jinbei asked, his face grave. Robin looked up, her eyes meeting Luffy's. 11 months from now. Luffy's grin widened impossibly. See? Told you we'd find One Piece this year. 3 days later, the Thousand Sunny cut through rough seas as storm clouds gathered overhead. Nami stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on her log pose while barking orders to the crew. Turn the mainsail 15 degrees starboard. Frankie, we need more speed. On it, sis. Frankie called back, disappearing below deck to adjust the coup de burst system for a milder, sustained propulsion. Robin sat in the library, surrounded by papers covered in ancient script. The journal lay open beside her, alongside the rubbings from the 2 road poneglyphs they already possessed. Dark circles had formed under her eyes from lack of sleep. Luffy burst through the door, a plate of meat in one hand. "Robin. Any progress?" She nodded, not looking up. "I've confirmed the cipher key works. With the information from the 2 road poneglyphs we have, I can narrow down the search area for the 4th one. That's my archaeologist." Luffy shouted, dropping into a cross-legged position on the floor beside her. "So where we headed?" "Based on my calculations, the final road poneglyph is likely somewhere in the waters near Elbaf." "Elbaf?" Luffy's eyes lit up. "Usopp's gonna freak out." As if summoned by his name, Usopp's voice echoed through the ship. "Ship on the horizon. Looks like trouble." Luffy stuffed the remaining meat into his mouth and sprinted out to the deck. Robin carefully placed a bookmark in Odin's journal before following. The crew had gathered at the starboard rail. Through the misty rain, a massive ship with black sails approached. Even at a distance, the Jolly Roger was unmistakable, a skull with 3 scars over the left eye and a necklace of large beads. "Blackbeard," Zoro growled, his hand already resting on Enma's hilt. Luffy's playful demeanor vanished, replaced by the intense focus that had become more common since his awakening in Wano. "What's he doing here?" "He must be after the same thing we are," Robin said quietly. "The road poneglyphs." "How would he know about our heading?" Nami asked. Sanji took a long drag from his cigarette. "Information travels fast in the New World. Especially after what we did in Wano. Everyone knows we're making our final push," Jinbei agreed. "Defeating 2 emperors has put a target on our backs." The Blackbeard pirate's ship grew closer, now clearly on an intercept course. The crew could make out figures moving on the distant deck. "What's the play, Captain?" Zoro asked, glancing at Luffy. Luffy cracked his knuckles. "We don't have time for detours. If Blackbeard wants a fight, we'll give him one. Their ship is twice our size and likely carries his entire fleet," Jinbei cautioned. "A direct confrontation would be costly." "Then we don't fight fair," Luffy replied with a determined grin. "Nami, can you use the weather?" Nami studied the gathering storm clouds and nodded. "Those are thunderheads. With my Climatact, I can create enough cover for us to slip away or launch a surprise attack." "Good. Robin, how much time do you need to finish your analysis?" "A few more hours at least," she replied. "Then we buy you time." Luffy turned to the rest of the crew. "Frankie, get the Sunny ready for a coup de burst. Sanji, Zoro, Jinbei, you're with me. We're gonna say hello to Teach." "You want to board their ship?" Usopp squeaked. "Nope. Just distract them." Luffy stretched his arms. "Everyone else stays here and protects Robin and the ship." Blackbeard's laughter carried across the water as his ship drew near enough for his massive form to be visible at the bow. "Zihahaha. Straw Hat. Fancy meeting you here." "Gear forth," Luffy whispered, his skin taking on a reddish hue as he inflated his muscles. "Bound man." In an instant, Luffy rocketed from the Sunny's deck toward Blackbeard's ship, leaving a blast of displaced air in his wake. Zoro followed, using his aerial-slash techniques to launch himself across the gap. Sanji ignited his leg and Sky walked through the air, while Jinbei dove into the sea, swimming faster than most ships could sail. The 4 strongest Straw Hats converged on Blackbeard's vessel from different directions simultaneously. Luffy's fist connected with Blackbeard's face before the Emperor could activate his darkness power, sending him crashing into his own mast. "That's for Ace, you bastard!" Luffy shouted. Blackbeard wiped blood from his mouth, his perpetual grin never faltering. "Still sore about your brother?" "That was years ago, Straw Hat. We're both emperors now, shouldn't we be more civilized?" "Says the guy tracking us across the Grand Line," Luffy replied, bouncing on the air to avoid a swipe from Blackbeard's darkness-cloaked hand. Around them, chaos erupted as Zoro engaged Shiryu of the Rain, their blades creating shock waves with each clash. Sanji battled Van Augur, his speed making it impossible for the sniper to get a clean shot. At the waterline, Jinbei had created a massive whirlpool that threatened to destabilize Blackbeard's ship. "You think I don't know what you're after?" Blackbeard laughed, gesturing toward the Thousand Sunny. "The road poneglyphs. I already have information on 2 of them myself. But why bother collecting all 4 when I could just take your archaeologist and whatever notes you've already gathered?" Luffy's eyes narrowed. "You're not touching my crew." "We'll see about that, Straw Hat." Blackbeard slammed his palm into the deck, dark energy pulsing outward. Black vortex. Gravity shifted around Luffy, trying to pull him toward Blackbeard's hand, but Luffy countered by inflating his arm and using the elasticity to slingshot himself overhead. Gomu Gomu no Kong Gun. The massive fist collided with Blackbeard, driving him through the deck of his own ship. Timber splintered as the Emperor crashed through one level after another. Aboard the Thousand Sunny, Nami had created a localized storm directly over Blackbeard's ship. Lightning struck the metal fittings, electrifying the rigging and creating chaos among the enemy crew. "Robin! How's it coming?" Nami called through the Den Den Mushi. "I've identified a pattern," Robin's voice crackled back. "Based on the 2 road poneglyphs we have in Odin's cipher, I believe the 4th poneglyph is hidden in a place called God's Vault on Elbaf." God's Vault? Never heard of it. It's described as a sacred cave where giants store their most precious treasures. If the world government wanted to hide something from pirates, placing it under the protection of the giants would be clever. On Blackbeard's ship, Luffy overheard the conversation through his own baby Den Den Mushi. So did Blackbeard, who had recovered from being punched through his ship and now stood with dark energy swirling around both hands. "Elbaf, is it? Thanks for the tip, Straw Hat." "Zihahaha. Damn it," Luffy muttered, then shouted into his Den Den Mushi, "Frankie. Get ready for coup de burst. Guys, we're leaving." Zoro disengaged from his duel with Shiryu, kicking off the larger man's chest to gain distance. "What's the exit plan?" "Same way we came," Luffy replied, dodging a column of darkness that Blackbeard sent his way. "Meet at the Sunny in 30 seconds. Sanji knocked Van Augur unconscious with a precise kick to the temple before flipping backward. "On my way, Captain." Jinbei's voice came through the Den Den Mushi. "I've damaged their rudder. They won't be able to follow immediately." Blackbeard lunged for Luffy, dark matter coalescing around his massive fist. "You're not getting away, Straw Hat. Watch me." Luffy twisted his arm repeatedly before unleashing it. Gomu Gomu no Rifle. The spinning punch caught Blackbeard in the stomach, doubling him over. Luffy used the momentum to launch himself into the sky, where he shifted to snakeman form for extra maneuverability. Back on the Sunny, Frankie had the coup de burst ready to fire. System charged at 120%. "We can get out of here any time. Wait for the captain," Nami ordered, manipulating her climb attack to intensify the storm over Blackbeard's ship. 32 seconds later, all 4 Straw Hats had returned, Luffy bouncing onto the deck, Zoro slicing his way through the air to land perfectly at the mast, Sanji descending from the sky with controlled grace, and Jinbei climbing aboard, water cascading off his massive frame. "Now, Frankie!" Luffy shouted. Coup de burst. The Thousand Sunny blasted forward on a jet of compressed air, leaving Blackbeard's damaged ship far behind in a matter of seconds. When they finally slowed down, they were miles away, hidden behind a small archipelago of uninhabited islands. Luffy collapsed onto the deck, his gear fourth form dissipating as exhaustion took over. "That was close." "Too close," Nami agreed, checking their heading. "And now Blackbeard knows where we're going." "Then we better get there first," Luffy said, already pushing himself back up. "How long to Elbaf?" Nami consulted her maps. "At top speed, 3 days. But we'll need to stop for supplies. Make it 2, Luffy ordered, his tone leaving no room for argument. We'll fish for food if we have to. The giant sentries guarding Elbaf's coast stood like living mountains, their spears taller than the Thousand Sunny's mast. Luffy waved enthusiastically at them from the figurehead. We're friends of Hajrudin. And little Oimo and Kashi from Water 7. The giants exchanged glances before the larger one leaned down, his beard brushing the water's surface. You claim friendship with our brothers? Prove it, little pirate. Luffy grinned and pulled up his shirt, revealing the scar on his chest. Got this from Marineford, trying to save my brother. Hajrudin was there when I rang the ox bell afterward. He knows who I am. The giant scrutinized the scar, then broke into a booming laugh. Indeed. The story of Straw Hat Luffy has reached even Elbaf. Enter, warriors of the sea. Any enemy of the world government is a friend of the giants. As the Sunny sailed into the massive harbor, the crew marveled at the scale of everything around them. Buildings stood hundreds of feet tall, trees reached for the clouds, and giants of all shapes and sizes went about their business, many stopping to stare at the pirate ship. This is super. Frankie shouted, his eyes wide with excitement. The architecture here is incredible. Usopp trembled with excitement. I can't believe we're actually in Elbaf. The warrior nation I've dreamed of visiting my whole life. Stay focused, Zoro reminded them. We're here for the road Poneglyph, not sightseeing. A delegation of giants approached the harbor as the Sunny docked. At their head walked a familiar face, Hajrudin, now wearing the insignia of an Elbaf war chief. Straw Hat. Hajrudin called out, his voice booming across the water. News of your victory in Wano has reached every corner of the world. We giants raise our mugs to your triumph over Kaido. Luffy jumped from the ship, landing on the giant-sized dock with ease. Great to see you again, Hajrudin. How's the new giant warrior pirates doing? Flourishing under Elbaf's protection, Hajrudin replied with pride. But I sense you haven't come merely to visit. What brings the fifth emperor to our shores? Luffy's expression grew serious. We're looking for something called God's Vault. Heard of it? The giants around Hajrudin fell silent, exchanging uneasy glances. Hajrudin himself stroked his beard thoughtfully. God's Vault is sacred ground, he said finally. Few are permitted to enter, even among our own kind. It's important, Luffy insisted. We believe there's a road Poneglyph hidden there. A murmur passed through the gathered giants. Hajrudin leaned down, lowering his voice as much as a giant could. You seek the path to Laugh Tale? To the throne of the Pirate King? I'm gonna be the Pirate King, Luffy stated simply, as if commenting on the weather. Hajrudin studied him for a long moment before breaking into another booming laugh. Your conviction hasn't changed since the Colosseum. Very well, I shall take your request to the Council of Elders. In the meantime, you and your crew are welcome in Elbaf. We shall feast tonight in honor of your arrival. As Hajrudin departed with most of his entourage, Robin approached Luffy. That went better than expected. Giants are pretty straightforward, Luffy replied with a shrug. They respect strength and honesty. Still, accessing God's Vault won't be simple, Robin cautioned. According to the journal, it's one of the most heavily guarded locations in the world, not just by giants, but by ancient security measures dating back to the Void Century. We'll figure it out when we get there, Luffy said confidently. Right now, I'm starving. Let's check out this giant-sized feast they're talking about. The feast was held in a massive meat hall that could have housed a small city. Giants sat at tables made from entire redwood trees, while the Straw Hats were given a special table sized for humans but placed on a raised platform so they could interact with their hosts. Luffy ate with his usual enthusiasm, stretching his mouth to engulf giant-sized portions while the giants roared with laughter and approval. Drinking contests broke out between Zoro and several giant warriors, while Brooke entertained with songs that had the entire hall stomping in rhythm, shaking the very foundations. Amid the celebration, Robin quietly conversed with an elderly giantess named Jorel, who served as the tribe's historian. The vault was sealed during the Century of Emptiness, Jorel explained, using the giant's term for the Void Century. Our ancestors swore to protect its contents until the coming of the dawn. The dawn. Robin's interest piqued. That phrase appears in ancient texts across the world. What does it mean to your people? Jorel sipped from a barrel-sized mug of mead. It refers to the return of joy to the world, when the one with the inherited will sets right what was made wrong. We giants live long lives, historian. Some of our oldest elders were alive when Joy Boy still walked the earth. Robin's eyes widened. You have oral histories from the Void Century? Fragments only, Jorel sighed. Much was lost in the Great Cleansing, when the 20 kings hunted down those who knew too much. But we remember enough to know that the world was betrayed, and that someday a warrior would come to break the chains of that betrayal. And the road poneglyph in God's vault? Why would your ancestors agree to hide it? Because the alternative was extinction, Jorel said grimly. The 20 kings gave us little choice, guard the stone or face their divine weapons. Our pride was great, but our chiefs were wise enough to recognize a battle that could not be won. Across the hall, Luffy had gotten into an arm wrestling contest with a giant triple his size. Despite the absurd difference in mass, Luffy's rubbery arm bulged with Gear 4th power as he pushed back against the giant's strength. You're strong for a tiny human, the giant bellowed. You too. Luffy grinned, veins popping on his forehead from exertion. But I'm gonna win. With a final surge of hockey-infused strength, Luffy slammed the giant's arm down onto the table, cracking the massive wooden surface. The hall erupted in cheers and pounding mugs. As the night progressed, Hadrudden approached the human platform, his expression more serious than before. Straw Hat, he said, gesturing for Luffy to follow him to a quieter corner. The council has deliberated on your request. Luffy wiped meat juice from his chin. And? They are divided. Some believe the prophecies point to you as the one who will bring the dawn. Others fear the consequences of releasing what lies sealed away. I just need to see the poneglyph, Luffy clarified. We're not taking anything. Even knowledge can be dangerous, Hadrudden replied. The council has decided you must prove yourself worthy. Tomorrow at dawn, you will face the trial of kings, a test that has broken many who sought entry to the vault before you. Luffy's eyes gleamed with excitement. A challenge? I'm in. This is no ordinary battle, Straw Hat. The trial tests more than strength, it tests the spirit, the mind, and the heart of one who would be king. Doesn't matter, Luffy said with absolute confidence. I'll pass whatever test they throw at me. As Hadrudden returned to the celebration, Luffy rejoined his crew and shared the news. A trial? Sounds ominous, Usopp mumbled around a mouthful of giant-sized bread. It's probably just beating up some monster, Luffy said dismissively. Robin shook her head. I don't think so, Captain. From what Jorel told me, the trial of kings is an ancient ceremony. It likely involves facing aspects of yourself that most would rather keep hidden. Like a mirror match? Zoro asked, his one eye narrowing. More like a spiritual challenge, Robin explained. The giants believe that only one with the qualities of a true king should access the knowledge in God's vault. Well, Luffy's gonna be the pirate king, so he should pass no problem, Chopper said with absolute faith. Nami wasn't so sure. Let's not underestimate this. Remember how many powerful pirates have tried to reach Laugh Tale over the decades. If this trial was easy, someone would have passed it already. Doesn't matter, Luffy repeated, tearing into another massive chunk of meat. We need that poneglyph, so I'll pass the trial. Simple as that. Dawn broke over Elbaf in a spectacular display of orange and gold light filtering through ancient trees taller than mountains. The Straw Hat crew followed Hadrudden and a procession of giant elders through a path that wound deep into the sacred forest at the island's center. Luffy walked with uncharacteristic quiet, his eyes taking in the majesty around them. The trees here were unlike any they'd seen before, their bark shimmered with an inner light, and their leaves sang soft melodies as the wind passed through them. This forest has stood since the world was young, Hadrudden explained. The trees you see are older than the Red Line itself. After walking for what seemed like hours, they reached a massive clearing where a single stone platform rose from the earth. Carved into the platform were intricate symbols that Robin immediately recognized as the same language used on the poneglyphs. "This is the gateway," one of the elders announced, his white beard touching the ground as he bowed toward the platform. "Beyond lies the path to God's vault, but only those who pass the trial may proceed." Luffy stepped forward. "So what do I have to do? Fight something?" The elder giant shook his head. "The trial of kings requires no violence, Straw Hat. It requires truth." Before Luffy could ask what that meant, the elder gestured for him to stand on the platform. As soon as Luffy's feet touched the ancient stone, the symbols began to glow with an eerie blue light. The light spread, enveloping Luffy in a column that stretched toward the sky. "Luffy!" Nami cried out in alarm. "It's okay," Hadrudden assured them. "The gateway is merely testing his spirit. He is in no physical danger." Inside the column of light, Luffy found himself no longer in the clearing. Instead, he stood in a space of swirling mist and distant stars. Before him appeared three figures, shadowy at first, but slowly taking recognizable form. Ace. Sabo. Garp. "This isn't real," Luffy muttered to himself. "You guys are just in my head." "Are we?" Ace's form asked, his voice exactly as Luffy remembered it. "Or are we the parts of yourself that you need to confront? What do you want to be king for, Luffy?" Sabo's form continued. "Is it for freedom? For adventure? Or is it to fulfill a promise?" "The throne comes with responsibility," Garp's gruff voice added. "Are you prepared for what that means, boy?" Luffy crossed his arms. "I'm gonna be the freest person on the sea. That's all there is to it." "Is it?" Ace challenged. "Freedom for yourself, or freedom for others too?" The mist swirled, and suddenly Luffy was watching memories: Drum Island with Chopper, Enies Lobby for Robin, Fishman Island where he declared war on Big Mom to protect his friends. "I protect my friends," Luffy stated firmly. "That's what a captain does." "And the world?" Garp's form pressed. "The Pirate King stands at the summit. What you do there affects everyone below." More memories appeared: slaves in Sabaody, the suffering citizens of Dressrosa, the starving people of Wano. "I'm not trying to be some hero," Luffy insisted. "I just do what feels right. And that's exactly why." Sabo's form began. "You might be worthy after all," Ace's form finished. The mist swirled again, and a new figure appeared, this one cloaked in shadow, wearing a straw hat that obscured his face. "Who are you supposed to be?" Luffy demanded. "I am Joy Boy," the figure answered. "Or rather, the memory of him that sleeps in all who carry the will of D." "Are you the one who left the One Piece at Laugh Tale?" The figure nodded. "I left many things there: truth, power, responsibility. The question is not whether you can find it, Monkey D. Luffy. The question is whether you can bear it." "I can handle whatever it is," Luffy stated confidently. "Even if it means carrying the weight of 800 years of suppressed history. Even if it means becoming an enemy to the very concept of the world as it exists today." Luffy's expression hardened. "I've already picked fights with emperors and the world government. I'm not afraid of making more enemies." "It's not about fear," Joy Boy's shadowy form replied. "It's about purpose. What will you do with the truth once you possess it?" Luffy thought for a moment, an unusual seriousness crossing his face. "I'll do what I've always done. I'll be free, and I'll help my friends be free too. If the truth helps with that, great. If not. He shrugged. I'll figure it out as I go. Joy Boy's form seemed to smile beneath the shadow of his hat. An honest answer. Very well, Monkey D. Luffy. You may proceed to the vault. But remember this warning, the truth you seek has broken stronger men than you. Be prepared for what you will learn. The light column dissipated, and Luffy found himself back on the stone platform in the clearing. The giants and his crew were watching him expectantly. Did I pass? Luffy asked, looking around in confusion. The elder giant nodded slowly. The gateway has accepted you, Straw Hat. Few have ever completed the trial so quickly. What did you see in there, Luffy? Chopper asked with wide eyes. Luffy scratched his head. Just talked to some people who weren't really there. It wasn't a big deal. Robin studied him carefully. Was one of them Joy Boy? Luffy's eyes widened slightly. Yeah, actually. How'd you know? The Trial of Kings is said to connect the participant with the inherited will of the past, Robin explained. If you spoke with Joy Boy's memory, it confirms what many have suspected, you carry his will forward, Luffy. Whatever that means, Luffy said with a dismissive wave. So where's this vault place? The elder giant stamped his massive staff against the ground, and the stone platform began to sink, revealing a staircase that spiraled down into darkness. God's vault lies beneath the ancient tree, the elder intoned solemnly. You may take your archaeologist, but the rest must remain here. Just Robin. Luffy frowned. Why can't everyone come? Those are the terms, Straw Hat. The knowledge below is not meant for many eyes. Luffy looked at his crew. You guys okay with that? Zoro nodded. We'll keep watch up here. Make sure Blackbeard doesn't crash the party. Speaking of which, Nami said, we should hurry. If Blackbeard figured out where we were headed, he can't be far behind. Luffy turned to Robin. Ready? She nodded, her eyes gleaming with academic excitement. I've been ready for 20 years, Captain. Together, they descended the staircase, leaving their friends in the clearing above. The stairs seemed to go on forever, carved from the living rock and illuminated by the same strange blue light that had enveloped Luffy during the trial. So what did the trial really show you? Robin asked quietly as they descended. Luffy glanced at her, then back to the steps. It asked me why I want to be Pirate King. And what did you answer? The truth. That I want to be the freest person on the sea. Robin smiled softly. And Joy Boy accepted that answer. Yeah, but he warned me that the One Piece might be more complicated than I think. Something about 800 years of history. The Void Century, Robin murmured. It's all connected, Luffy. The ancient weapons, the will of D, the creation of the world government, all of it stems from whatever happened during those missing 100 years. And you think this road poneglyph will help us figure it out? It's the final piece we need to reach Laugh Tale, where all will be revealed. After what seemed like hours of descent, they finally reached the bottom of the staircase. Before them stood a massive door made of what appeared to be solid gold, inscribed with more of the ancient language. Robin approached the door, her fingers tracing the symbols. This is older than any poneglyph I've ever seen. It says, beyond this threshold lies the truth of the world. Enter with an open heart or not at all. Luffy stepped forward and pushed against the massive door. Despite its apparent weight, it swung open easily, revealing a chamber that took both their breaths away. God's vault was a cathedral-sized cavern with walls of polished obsidian that reflected the blue light emanating from a pool at its center. Floating above the pool, suspended in midair, was a red cuboid stone, the road poneglyph. But it wasn't alone. Surrounding the chamber were statues of giants from another age, each holding what appeared to be weapons of impossible design. And carved into the walls themselves were murals depicting a history neither of them recognized, continents in different configurations, strange machines flying through the sky, and at the center of it all, a tree so massive it seemed to connect the earth to the heavens. The true history, Robin whispered, tears forming in her eyes. It's all here, Luffy. Not just the road poneglyph, but the history itself. Luffy approached the floating stone cautiously. How's it doing that? Just hanging there. Some kind of ancient technology, Robin replied, already pulling out paper and charcoal for rubbings. Focus on the poneglyph first. I'll document as much of the rest as I can afterward. As Robin began taking impressions from the poneglyph, Luffy wandered the chamber, examining the murals with uncharacteristic attention. Hey, Robin, he called after a while. This picture shows people fighting against guys wearing those bubble helmets, like the celestial dragons wear. Robin paused her work to glance over. That would make sense. The celestial dragons are descendants of the 20 kings who formed the world government at the end of the Void Century. They were likely the victors in whatever conflict reshaped the world. So the guys they were fighting against, were they the good guys? Robin approached the mural, studying it carefully. According to this, they were called the D-Clan, your ancestors, Luffy. They opposed the formation of the world government because it involved some kind of sacrifice. She moved to another section of the wall, her fingers tracing the carved images. This shows an island being raised into the sky, and others being submerged beneath the waves. They physically rearranged the world, Luffy. That's how the red line was created. They moved entire islands. How's that possible? The ancient weapons, Robin replied. Poseidon, Pluton, and Uranus. Together, they had the power to reshape the world itself. And according to this. She stopped, her face paling. They're meant to be controlled by the true Pirate King. Before Luffy could respond, a rumbling shook the chamber. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the blue light flickered. What's that? Luffy looked up, his observation haki stretching outward. Something's happening topside. Robin quickly finished her rubbing of the poneglyph. We need to go, Captain. I have what we need. They raced back to the staircase, climbing as fast as they could while the rumbling intensified. When they finally emerged into the clearing, they found chaos. The peaceful forest was now a battlefield. Giants clashed with what appeared to be marines, but not ordinary ones. These wore specialized armor and carried weapons designed specifically for fighting giants. At their head stood a tall, lean man with silver hair and a marine admiral's coat. Who the hell is that? Luffy demanded as he spotted his crew fighting nearby. Admiral Ryukyu. Chopper shouted as he transformed into his guard point to block a barrage of bullets aimed at Usopp. He showed up with a whole fleet right after you went below. How did they find us? Robin wondered aloud. Hadrudin, bleeding from several wounds but still fighting fiercely, swung his massive club into a group of marines. They must have been tracking you, Straw Hat. The world government has spies everywhere. The silver-haired admiral turned at the sound of Luffy's emergence, his eyes narrowing. Monkey D. Luffy, he called out, his voice carrying across the battlefield. By order of the 5 elders themselves, I am here to stop your progress. The road poneglyph you seek is now under marine jurisdiction. Like hell it is. Luffy shot back, his body already shifting into gear second. This belongs to the giants, not the government. Ryukyu smiled thinly. Nothing in this world exists outside government control, pirate. Not for long, anyway. The admiral raised his hand, and the forest around them began to wither. Trees that had stood for millennia suddenly dried out, their life force visibly draining away and flowing into Ryukyu's body. Forest depletion, he announced calmly. I can absorb the life energy of any plant within my domain. These ancient trees have quite the potent force within them. As the trees withered, the giants roared in outrage. Our sacred forest, one of the elders cried. He's killing the ancient trees. Luffy's face contorted with fury. That's enough. He launched himself at Ryukujiu, his fist cocked back for a devastating blow. Gomu Gomu no Red Hawk. His flaming fist connected with Ryukujiu's chest, sending the admiral flying backward through several dying trees. But the marine recovered quickly, landing on his feet with inhuman grace. Is that the best the fifth emperor can do? He taunted, the burn on his chest already healing as he absorbed more life energy from the forest. I expected more from the man who defeated Kaido. You haven't seen anything yet, Luffy growled, his skin darkening with armament haki. Gear 4th, Snakeman. As Luffy engaged the admiral in a high-speed battle, the rest of the Straw Hats fought alongside the giants against the specialized marine forces. Zoro cut through their reinforced armor with Enma, the cursed blade seeming to drink in the chaos of battle. Sanji's flaming kicks melted through the marines' weapons, while Jinbei used the water from a nearby stream to wash away entire squads. Robin clutched the poneglyph rubbing to her chest, protected on all sides by her crew. We need to get back to the Sunny, she called out. With this information, we can determine Laugh Tale's location. Easier said than done. Nami replied, using her climb attack to create a thundercloud that struck a group of advancing marines. The harbor is probably swarming with more of them. Frankie fired a laser from his palm, clearing a path through the enemy ranks. Leave that to me. General Frankie. His body transformed, mechanical parts shifting until he stood encased in a massive robot suit. I'll clear us a path to the harbor. Everyone follow the Super Frankie. As the crew began fighting their way toward the coast, Luffy and Ryukujiu continued their battle, tearing through the once sacred forest with devastating attacks. The admiral's ability to absorb life energy made him nearly impossible to wear down, while Luffy's rubber body and advanced haki kept him just ahead of Ryukujiu's deadliest techniques. You don't understand what you're doing, Straw Hat, Ryukujiu said as they clashed again, his arm transformed into a mass of thorny vines that tried to pierce Luffy's haki armor. The balance of the world depends on keeping certain truths buried. I don't care about your balance. Luffy shot back, stretching his arm for another attack. If your truth needs to stay hidden, then it deserves to be found. Such a simple mind, the admiral sighed, easily dodging Luffy's punch. This is why pirates can never be allowed to reach Laugh Tale. You lack the wisdom to use what you find there responsibly. And the government does? Luffy scoffed, launching himself into the air for a better angle of attack. The same government that lets celestial dragons keep slaves and murders anyone who asks questions. That government? Ryukujiu's expression darkened. The world isn't perfect, but it's stable. What you're chasing could undo 800 years of peace. Peace for who? Luffy landed behind the admiral and connected with a devastating kick that sent Ryukujiu crashing through a withered ancient tree. Not for Fishman Island. Not for Dressrosa. Not for Alabasta or Wano or any of the places I've seen. For a moment, Ryukujiu seemed genuinely taken aback by Luffy's words. But his hesitation lasted only seconds before he was back on the attack, the ground beneath Luffy erupting with massive roots that tried to ensnare him. Captain. Zoro's voice cut through the chaos. We've cleared a path to the harbor. We need to go now. Luffy glanced toward his swordsman, then back at the admiral. This isn't over. No, Ryukujiu agreed, readying another attack. It's only beginning. Luffy inflated his arm to enormous proportions. Gomu Gomu no Elephant Gun. The massive fist slammed into Ryukujiu with enough force to create a crater in the earth and send a shock wave through the remaining trees. While the admiral was temporarily stunned, Luffy stretched his other arm toward Zoro, grabbing his swordsman's outstretched hand. Let's go. Zoro pulled Luffy away from the battle just as Ryukujiu began to recover. Together, they sprinted through the path the crew had carved through the marine forces, racing toward the harbor where the thousand Sunny waited. Hadrudin and several other giants provided rear guard, holding off the marines to give the Straw Hats time to escape. Straw Hat. Hadrudden called out as Luffy passed. The prophecy speaks true, you are the one who will bring the dawn. Go to Laugh Tale. Discover the truth that has been hidden. Thanks for everything. Luffy shouted back. I promise I won't let you down. When they reached the harbor, they found the Sunny already prepared for immediate departure. Frankie's robot suit stood guard at the gangplank, keeping the few Marines who had reached the coast at bay. Everyone aboard. Nami ordered from the helm. Frankie, get ready for coup de burst as soon as the captain's on deck. One by one, the Straw Hats leaped aboard their ship. Luffy was the last to arrive, stretching his arms to catapult himself onto the deck just as a massive wall of vegetation erupted from the shoreline. Ryakuju had reached the harbor. Coup de burst. Frankie shouted, activating the Sunny's emergency propulsion system. The ship blasted away from Elbaf on a jet of compressed air, leaving Ryakuju and his marine forces behind. By the time the Admiral could organize a pursuit, the Straw Hats were miles away and picking up speed with favorable winds. Did you get it? Nami asked Robin once they were safely away from the island. Robin nodded, carefully unfolding the rubbing she had taken from the road poneglyph. We now have information from all 4 road poneglyphs. With Odin's cipher key, I can triangulate the location of Laugh Tale. How long will that take? Sanji asked as he handed out mugs of hot tea to the exhausted crew. A few days at most, Robin replied. The calculations are complex, and I want to be absolutely certain before we set our course. Luffy, who had been unusually quiet since their escape, finally spoke up. The Admiral said something about the balance of the world. And we saw murals in the vault about the world government rearranging the whole planet. What does it all mean, Robin? The archaeologist looked up from the poneglyph rubbing, her expression grave. I believe it means that the truth hidden on Laugh Tale is far more significant than treasure or a title, Luffy. The One Piece may be the key to undoing what the 20 Kings did 800 years ago. Like what? Chopper asked, his eyes wide. Based on what we saw in God's vault, possibly returning the world to its original geography, before the Red Line was created, before the Grand Line was isolated, before the 4 blues were separated. The crew fell silent as they contemplated the implications. That would change everything, Jinbei finally said. International trade, military power, the very basis of the world government's authority. No wonder they're so desperate to stop us, Usopp muttered. Luffy stood up and walked to the Sunny's figurehead, his special seat. He stared out at the horizon, where the sun was beginning to set in a blaze of orange and red. Doesn't matter what One Piece is, he said firmly. Doesn't matter if it changes the world or not. I made a promise to Shanks, and I'm keeping it. I'm going to be the Pirate King. Zoro raised his mug in a toast. To the future Pirate King. To Luffy, the crew cheered in unison. As they celebrated their narrow escape and the acquisition of the final road poneglyph information, none of them noticed the small Den Mushy perched on the railing, its eyes open and watching, transmitting everything back to its master, Marshal D. Teach, who listened with growing interest aboard his repaired ship. Zihahaha. Blackbeard laughed as he heard the Straw Hats' discussion. So the One Piece might reshape the world itself. All the more reason to take it for myself. Set course for wherever they're headed. We'll let Straw Hat lead us right to Laugh Tale. For 3 days and nights, Robin worked tirelessly in the Sunny's library, deciphering the complex coordinates hidden within the 4 road poneglyph rubbings. The rest of the crew maintained a vigilant watch, wary of pursuit from either Ryakuju's Marines or Blackbeard's pirates. On the morning of the 4th day, Robin emerged onto the deck, dark circles under her eyes but a triumphant smile on her face. I found it, she announced to the assembled crew. I know where Laugh Tale is. Luffy, who had been fishing off the port side, dropped his rod and bounded over. Really? Where? Is it far? Robin unrolled a map on the deck, weighing down the corners with small stones. It's here, she said, pointing to a location in the new world that appeared to be nothing but empty ocean. But we can only reach it when the eternal tide flows, which according to my calculations, will happen exactly 73 days from now. 73 days. Luffy groaned. That's forever. Can't we just sail there now? It doesn't work that way, Robin explained patiently. Laugh Tale exists in a pocket dimension of sorts, a place that only intersects with our world when specific celestial conditions are met. The road poneglyphs don't just point to a location, they indicate a time and place where the veil between dimensions thins enough to pass through. Like a mystery island, Luffy said, his eyes wide with wonder. Precisely, Robin smiled. And according to Odin's journal, the eternal tide is the current that forms when that veil thins. It's a literal river in the sea that leads directly to Laugh Tale, but it only flows once every 50 years. And we just happen to be alive at the right time? Usopp asked skeptically. Robin's smile widened. I don't think it's coincidence, Usopp. The will of D, Luffy's encounters with Shanks, finding the poneglyph rubbings just in time, it feels like fate has been guiding us toward this moment. So what do we do for 73 days? Nami asked, studying the map. We can't just float around waiting. The Marines and Blackbeard are both hunting us. We prepare, Zoro stated simply, his hand resting on his swords. Train. Get stronger. Whatever's waiting for us on Laugh Tale, we need to be ready for it. And we need supplies, Sanji added. Food, medical provisions, repair materials, enough to last us through whatever we might face. Luffy pounded his fist into his palm. Then it's decided. We'll find a safe island to use as our base while we wait for this eternal tide thing. Somewhere we can train and stock up without the Marines finding us. I might know a place, Jinbei offered. There's an uninhabited island not far from here that the Fishman pirates used as a hideout years ago. It has fresh water, abundant wildlife, and natural caves for shelter. Most importantly, it's surrounded by unpredictable currents that make it difficult to approach unless you know the safe channels. Perfect. Luffy exclaimed. Jinbei, set the course. Everyone else, get ready for some serious training. The One Piece isn't gonna find itself. As the Thousand Sunny changed direction, heading toward their temporary sanctuary, the crew felt a renewed sense of purpose. The final leg of their journey was in sight, 73 days until they would make history as the first pirates since Roger to reach Laugh Tale. What none of them realized was that their discovery of the road poneglyph in Elbaf had set in motion events far beyond their understanding. In Mary Geos, the holy land of the world government, the 5 elders gathered in their chamber of shadows, their faces grave as they received Admiral Ryukuji's report. The straw hat has all 4 coordinates, the eldest of the elders said, his gnarled hands clenching into fists. After 800 years of vigilance, we face the return of Joy Boy's will. Perhaps it is time to awaken the final solution, another suggested, his voice barely above a whisper. The ancient weapon the 20 kings kept for themselves. Uranus, a third nodded. Its power could wipe the straw hats from existence before they reach Laugh Tale. The eldest elder shook his head. Uranus is unpredictable. Its use might cause more damage than the secret itself getting out. No, we must be more subtle. He turned to a shadowy figure who had remained silent throughout their discussion, a slight person wearing an ornate crown that obscured their features. What say you, Sama? How shall we proceed? The figure known as stepped forward, their face remaining in shadow despite the light. When they spoke, their voice carried the weight of centuries. The eternal tide approaches. The wheel of fate turns once more. Let the straw hat come to Laugh Tale, but he will find more than he bargained for. I have waited 800 years for this confrontation. Joy Boy's inheritor against the true ruler of this world. The 5 elders bowed their heads in unison. As you command, Sama. In the darkness of Mary Geos, plans were set in motion that would forever alter the course of history. The countdown to the final confrontation had begun. 73 days until the dawn. Chapter 2, Storm the Holy Land. Jinbei's hidden island turned out to be exactly what the Straw Hats needed. Nestled between unpredictable currents and perpetual fog banks, the small crescent-shaped landmass offered natural protection from prying eyes. Dense jungle covered most of the interior, while white sand beaches gave way to crystal-clear shallows teeming with fish. Luffy punched a massive boulder, shattering it into 1,000 pieces as sweat poured down his face. 62 days of non-stop training had transformed the already formidable pirate into something else entirely. His muscles rippled with new definition, and the control over his devil fruit powers had reached unprecedented levels. Again, Zoro commanded from where he sat cross-legged on a nearby cliff, 3 swords balanced perfectly on his outstretched palms. This time with only your thumb. Luffy grinned, cracked his neck, and faced the next boulder in line. His thumb darkened with armament hockey so intense it gleamed like polished obsidian. With a casual flick, he connected with the boulder twice his size, and it didn't just break, it disintegrated into fine powder. Better, Zoro acknowledged, not opening his eye. Your hockey concentration is improving. Across the island, similar scenes played out as each Straw Hat pushed their abilities to new heights. Nami practiced creating and controlling multiple weather systems simultaneously. Usopp developed specialized ammunition for every possible combat scenario. Sanji perfected aerial techniques that let him fight effectively even in environments without solid footing. Robin sat at the entrance to one of the island's caves, surrounded by papers, charts, and the poneglyph rubbings. Despite knowing Laugh Tale's coordinates, she continued studying the ancient text, searching for any clue about what they might find there. "How's it going?" Chopper asked, bringing her a fresh cup of herbal tea. The little doctor had spent his training time developing new medical compounds and transformations, his hybrid forms becoming more specialized and powerful. Robin sipped the tea gratefully. "I've been cross-referencing the text from God's Vault with what we've learned from other poneglyphs. There's something about Laugh Tale that doesn't add up." "What do you mean?" "According to these records, Laugh Tale isn't just the location of the One Piece. It's the site of something the ancient texts call, the Great Betrayal, an event so significant it led to the Void Century and the rise of the world government." Chopper's eyes widened. "That sounds serious." "It is," Robin confirmed. "And there's more. The texts repeatedly mention a key that Joy Boy left behind, something necessary to claim the true power of the One Piece." Before Chopper could ask what that meant, Nami's voice rang out across the island. "Everyone to the ship. Now." The urgency in her tone had the entire crew sprinting toward the Sunny within seconds. They found Nami on deck, staring intently at a newspaper delivered by News Coup. "What's wrong?" Luffy asked, arriving first. Nami handed him the paper. "The reverie starts in 3 days at Mary Geo's." "So?" Luffy shrugged. "That's just a boring meeting for kings, right?" "Read the headline," she instructed. Luffy squinted at the front page. Extraordinary security measures for Reverie AS 5 elders announce unprecedented full attendance. "The 5 elders rarely show themselves at these events," Robin explained, reading over Luffy's shoulder. "For all of them to attend publicly signals something momentous." "There's more," Nami continued. "According to this article, they're bringing historical artifacts of great significance from the National Treasure Vault for some kind of special ceremony." Robin's face paled. "Historical artifacts? From the vault? You think it's connected to Laugh Tale?" Zoro asked, crossing his arms. "It has to be," Robin replied. "The timing is too convenient." With just 11 days left until the Eternal Tide, the 5 elders suddenly decide to remove artifacts from their most secure vault. "They're planning something to stop us," Sanji concluded, lighting a cigarette. "Maybe using whatever these artifacts are to block the tide somehow." Luffy crushed the newspaper in his fist. "Then we'll stop them first." "You can't be suggesting." Usopp began, already sweating nervously. Yep. Luffy's face split into a determined grin. We're going to crash the reverie. 2 days later, the Thousand Sunny approached the Red Port, the maritime gateway to Mary Geos. The sacred land of the world government sat atop the Red Line, towering thousands of feet above sea level and accessible only by the carefully guarded Bondola lift system. The port bustled with activity as royal ships from around the world arrived carrying kings, queens, and their entourages for the reverie. Security had never been tighter, with vice admirals personally overseeing the screening of every vessel. The Straw Hats observed from a safe distance, hidden behind a small outcropping of rocks. We'll never get through that security, Usopp groaned, lowering his sniper goggles after scouting the port. There are at least 3 Admiral-level Marines down there, plus CP-0 agents everywhere. We don't need to use the front door, Robin said calmly. During my time with the revolutionaries, I learned about several secret passages into Mary Geos, tunnels originally built as escape routes for the celestial dragons in case of emergency. Where do these tunnels start? Jinbei asked. Robin pointed to a jagged cliff face several miles from the main port. There's an underwater cave system that leads directly beneath Mary Geos. The challenge will be navigating it without being detected. Leave that to me, Nami said confidently. After 2 months of training, I can create a fog so thick and localized that we could sail right past a marine headquarters without being spotted. And I can propel the Sunny underwater for short distances now, Frankie added. We get close enough, and I'll submarine us right into those caves. Luffy pounded his fists together. That's settled then. But once we're inside, we need to find whatever historical artifacts they're planning to use. The National Treasure Vault is in the Pangaea Castle, Robin explained. The innermost sanctum of Mary Geos. Getting there won't be easy. Nothing worth doing ever is, Luffy replied with a shrug. Okay, here's the plan. We sneak in through Robin's secret tunnel, make our way to this castle place, find the artifacts, wreck whatever they're planning, and get out. Simple. The rest of the crew exchanged glances. There's also the small matter of the 5 elders, Brook noted. Who, if I might remind everyone, are rumored to be among the strongest individuals in the world government. And potentially this in-person we heard about, Jinbei added gravely. The Shadow Ruler even the 5 elders answer to. Luffy's expression remained unchanged. Doesn't matter who's there. They're trying to stop us from reaching Laugh Tale, and I won't let that happen. I'm going to be the Pirate King. His declaration seemed to settle the matter. The Straw Hats had never backed down from impossible odds before, and they weren't about to start now. One last thing, Robin said as they prepared to approach the secret entrance. The reverie will be attended by representatives from every kingdom in the world, including many we consider allies. You think we might find help inside? Zoro asked. Robin nodded. Alabasta, Drum Kingdom, Dressrosa, Fishman Island, Sakura Kingdom, we have friends in all these places. Not to mention, the Revolutionary Army typically uses the reverie as an opportunity to gather intelligence. We may not be as alone in Mary Geos as it seems. Great. Luffy clapped his hands together. More friends makes everything easier. Now let's go crash this boring meeting and save One Piece. As night fell, the Thousand Sunny glided silently through waters shrouded in Nami's magical fog. The densely packed mist limited visibility to barely an arm's length, yet somehow the navigator guided them unerringly toward their destination. 200 meters to the cave entrance, she whispered, her eyes closed as she sensed the currents and air pressure changes. Frankie, get ready for submersion. Super ready, the cyborg confirmed, adjusting dials on a new control panel he'd installed during their training period. Submerge mode activated in 3, 2, 1. The Sunny shuddered slightly as its hull reconfigured. Special panels sealed vulnerable areas, and a bubble of air formed around the deck, allowing the crew to breathe normally even as the ship sank beneath the waves. The transformation was Frankie's latest innovation, inspired by coding techniques used to reach Fishman Island but made temporary and activatable at will. "Jinbei, you're our eyes now," Nami said as darkness enveloped them underwater. The Fishman helmsman nodded, taking the wheel. His natural ability to sense ocean currents and underwater topography made him the perfect navigator for this phase of their journey. "The cave entrance should be directly ahead," Robin instructed, standing beside him with a hand-drawn map. "It's disguised as a natural formation, but there's a specific pattern of rocks that marks the true passage." Jinbei nodded. "I see it. A spiral formation with what appears to be a giant fishbone embedded in the center." "That's it," Robin confirmed. The fishbone is actually an ancient support structure designed to prevent cave-ins. The Sunny glided smoothly into the underwater cavern, the passage gradually widening until they reached an air pocket large enough for the ship to surface. As the protective bubble dissolved, the crew found themselves in an enormous grotto lit by bioluminescent algae that cast an eerie blue light throughout the space. "This is incredible," Chopper whispered, staring up at stalactites that hung like frozen waterfalls from the ceiling hundreds of feet above. "And old," Robin added, examining markings on the cave walls. "These symbols predate the world government. This place was ancient even during the Void Century." "Where to now?" Luffy asked, already hopping impatiently from foot to foot. Robin pointed to a barely visible path carved into the rock at the rear of the cavern. "That way leads up into the foundation of Mary Geos. According to my information, it eventually connects to the slave quarters beneath the Celestial Dragon's residential district." "The slave quarters?" Sanji's expression darkened. "You mean they still keep slaves right under the supposed center of justice?" "The Celestial Dragons consider it their divine right," Robin replied grimly. "Thousands of people live and die in those quarters without ever seeing the sun." Luffy's face hardened. "Then we'll free them on our way out." "Captain," Jinbei cautioned, "our mission is already dangerous enough without, it's not up for debate." Luffy cut him off, his voice uncharacteristically firm. "I don't leave people in cages. Never have, never will." No one argued further. Luffy's principles were the backbone of the crew's identity, and they wouldn't have followed him this far if they didn't share his fundamental sense of justice. "We should disguise ourselves before proceeding," Nami suggested practically. "Robin, what kind of people would move freely through these tunnels?" "Service staff for the Celestial Dragons," Robin replied. "They wear distinctive gray uniforms with the world government insignia. There should be a storage area near the tunnel entrance where they keep spare uniforms." "Perfect." Nami clapped her hands together. "We'll borrow some uniforms and walk right in. No one ever notices servants, right?" "There's one problem with that plan," Brook noted, gesturing to his skeletal form. "Some of us might be a bit conspicuous." "And I'm clearly not human," Chopper added sadly. "Neither am I," Jinbei said. Frankie struck a pose. "I'm super unique too." "Alright, new plan," Luffy decided. "Zoro, Sanji, Usopp, Nami, and I will wear disguises and go in first. Robin too, since she knows the layout. The rest of you stay with the Sunny as backup. If we're not back in 5 hours, or if you hear the signal, come in guns blazing." "What's the signal?" Chopper asked. Luffy grinned. "Trust me, you'll know it when you hear it." Dressed in stolen servant uniforms, the infiltration team made their way through narrow maintenance tunnels that honeycombed the foundation of Mary Geos. Robin led the way, her perfect memory recalling maps she'd studied during her time with the Revolutionary Army. "These passages were built for the comfort of the Celestial Dragons," she explained quietly as they walked. "They allow servants to move between areas without being seen by their masters. The world nobles prefer to imagine their food and amenities simply appear by magic." "How are we going to find these artifacts?" Zoro asked, keeping a hand close to his swords despite their hiding place under the servant robes. "The Pangaea Castle has a central vault where the national treasure is kept," Robin replied. "But during the reverie, certain historical items are displayed in the Hall of Authority where the meetings take place. If I had to guess, whatever they're planning to use against us would be prepared there. So we head for this hall place? Luffy asked. Robin nodded. But we'll need to be careful. The reverie officially begins tomorrow, but many world leaders have already arrived. The security will be unprecedented. They emerged from the tunnels into a wider service corridor where other grey-clad servants hurried about their duties, heads bowed submissively. No one gave the disguised pirates a second glance as they mimicked the deferential posture of the real servants. This way, Robin whispered, guiding them toward a grand staircase. We need to go up 7 levels to reach the main governmental sector. As they climbed, the surroundings transformed from the utilitarian service areas to increasingly opulent halls. Gold leaf adorned nearly every surface, priceless artwork lined the walls, and jewels were embedded in decorative patterns so casually it seemed the architects had considered diamonds and rubies to be simple building materials. This is disgusting, Sanji muttered as they passed a drinking fountain where the water poured from a solid gold spigot into a basin lined with pearls. People are starving across the world while these bastards literally walk on wealth. Focus, Nami reminded him, though her own eyes kept calculating the value of everything they passed. We're here for the artifacts, not a heist. Speak for yourself, Usopp whispered, having already pocketed several small gem-encrusted items that, accidentally, fell into his hands. I call it revolutionary wealth redistribution. They had reached the 6th level when disaster nearly struck. Rounding a corner, they came face to face with a procession of celestial dragons being carried on palanquins by straining slaves. The world nobles wore their trademark bubble helmets and expressions of bored disdain as they passed. The pirates immediately pressed themselves against the wall and bowed deeply, eyes fixed on the floor as they'd observed other servants doing. The procession was nearly past when a familiar voice caused Luffy's head to snap up. I simply cannot understand why Father insisted we attend this tedious affair, whined St. Charlos, the same celestial dragon Luffy had punched at Sabaody 2 years earlier. The reverie is nothing but listening to lesser beings prattle on about their insignificant problems. The 5 elders requested the presence of all world nobles, replied another celestial dragon beside him. Something about witnessing a historic moment. Besides, I hear they're bringing out Joy Boy's artifacts. Joy Boy? Charlos scoffed. Those ancient fairy tales again. As if some prehistoric commoner could possibly matter to our divine lineage. Luffy's fist clenched so hard his knuckles cracked audibly. Sanji's hand shot out, gripping his captain's wrist with crushing force. Not now, he breathed, barely audible. We need to know more. The tension in Luffy's arm remained, but he didn't move as the procession continued past them. Only when the world nobles had disappeared around the next corner did the pirates straighten. Did you hear that? Robin whispered excitedly. Joy Boy's artifacts. That must be what they're planning to display. Joy Boy again, Luffy murmured. The same name from the Trial of Kings and Gods vault. He's at the center of everything, Robin nodded. The Void Century, the ancient weapons, the will of D, all of it connects back to him somehow. And whatever these artifacts are, the world government has kept them hidden for 800 years, Nami added. Luffy's expression hardened with resolve. Then we definitely need to see them before these jerks can use them to stop us. They continued their ascent, eventually reaching a massive pair of golden doors engraved with the world government symbol. 2 CP0 agents stood guard, their blank masks revealing nothing of the deadly skills they possessed. The Hall of Authority, Robin whispered. The heart of the world government's power. This is where the reverie will take place tomorrow. And where they'll have Joy Boy's artifacts, Luffy added. But how do we get past those guys? Leave it to me, Sanji said, adjusting his servant uniform. He grabbed a nearby silver tray that had been left on a decorative table and balanced it on one hand with professional precision. Kitchen staff delivering refreshments for tomorrow's preparations. Before anyone could stop him, Sanji strode confidently toward the CP0 agents, his posture perfect and his expression appropriately subservient. "Final delivery from the royal kitchens," he announced, his voice modulated to sound bored and slightly resentful, exactly like a servant who had been working too many hours. "Head chef requires confirmation of placement before the evening staff can be dismissed." The CP0 agents exchanged glances, then one nodded curtly and pushed the door open. "Be quick about it." "Of course, sir," Sanji replied with just the right note of resignation, then gestured for the others to follow. "Come along then, new staff. And try not to gawk, it's unseemly." The rest of the disguised pirates hurried forward, keeping their eyes downcast as they slipped past the elite government agents. Once inside the Hall of Authority, they had to fight to maintain their servant personas despite the overwhelming majesty of the space. The hall was cavernous, with a ceiling that soared hundreds of feet overhead, supported by columns of pure marble veined with gold. A massive circular table dominated the center, sized to accommodate representatives from every kingdom in the world. The walls were lined with the flags of all member nations, and giant windows offered breathtaking views of the clouds below Mary Geos. But what immediately drew their attention was the display at the far end of the hall, behind what was clearly the seat of honor reserved for the 5 elders. On a raised dais, protected by what appeared to be a force field of some kind, sat 3 objects: a straw hat similar to Luffy's but much larger and worn with age, a cubic device covered in the same symbols found on poneglyphs, and a sword whose blade seemed to be made of a material that shifted colors as they watched. "Those must be Joy Boy's artifacts," Robin breathed, her historian's instincts practically vibrating with excitement. "That hat." Luffy stared at the ancient straw hat, his hand unconsciously reaching up to touch his own. "It looks just like mine." "Like Shanks." "The will of D and the straw hat," Robin murmured. "They've been connected all along." "What about that weird box thing?" Usopp asked, pointing to the cubic device. Robin moved closer, studying it through the protective field. "If I had to guess, it's some kind of navigational tool. The symbols reference astronomical alignments and oceanic patterns, possibly related to the eternal tide." "And the sword?" Zoro's interest was piqued, his hand unconsciously touching Enma's hilt. "That." Robin hesitated. "I'm not certain. The chronicles mention a weapon that cuts what cannot be cut, but I always assumed it was metaphorical." "We need to get a closer look," Luffy decided, moving toward the dais. "Wait!" Nami hissed, grabbing his arm. "That barrier looks serious. We should figure out how to disable it first." "No need to disable anything," came a smooth voice from behind them. "I'd be happy to give you a personal tour of our historical collection." The straw hats whirled around to find themselves face to face with a tall, elegantly dressed man with long white hair and a pointed goatee. Despite his advanced age, he carried himself with deadly grace, and the aura of power emanating from him was palpable. "Elder Star," Robin gasped, recognizing one of the 5 elders. "Quite right, Nico Robin," the man replied with a cold smile. "Though I believe the newspapers have taken to calling me the strategist in their more sensationalist articles about the 5 elders." He glanced at the rest of the disguised pirates. "And the rest of the straw hat crew as well. How convenient. We were just discussing the most efficient way to eliminate you before the eternal tide, and here you deliver yourselves directly to our doorstep." Luffy stepped forward, discarding his servant disguise with a shrug. "We know you're planning to use Joy Boy's artifacts to stop us from reaching Laugh Tale. Is that what you think?" The elder raised an eyebrow. "How charmingly simplistic." "We have no intention of stopping you from reaching Laugh Tale, Monkey D. Luffy." The pirates exchanged confused glances. "You don't?" Nami asked suspiciously. "Of course not," the elder smiled thinly. "We intend to eliminate you right here, right now, along with everyone else who poses a threat to the perfect world order we've maintained for 800 years. He raised a hand, and suddenly the Hall of Authority was flooded with CP0 agents, emerging from hidden doors and alcoves around the perimeter. Within seconds, the Straw Hats found themselves surrounded by at least 30 of the world government's deadliest operatives. Did you really think infiltrating the Holy Land would be so simple? The elder laughed softly. We've been tracking your movements since Elbaf. In fact, we've been monitoring you since long before that. The moment you defeated Kaido, your fate was sealed. Luffy cracked his knuckles, unintimidated. Funny, people keep telling me my fate is sealed, but here I am, still kicking. Admirable spirit, the elder nodded. But ultimately futile. You see, Monkey D. Luffy, you're not the first to carry Joy Boy's will, and you won't be the last. We've eliminated every carrier of the will of D who came too close to the truth. Gold Roger was merely the most recent example. You killed the Pirate King. Usopp squeaked. Not directly, the elder clarified. We simply arranged circumstances that made his execution inevitable. Just as we've arranged circumstances that will lead to your elimination today. Luffy's eyes narrowed. Why are you telling us all this? Seems pretty stupid for a so-called strategist. For the first time, the elder's composure cracked slightly. Because Sama wishes you to understand the futility of your quest before you die. To comprehend that you were never anything but pieces in a game that has been played for centuries. Sama. Robin repeated. The Shadow Ruler. The true sovereign of this world, the elder confirmed. The immortal keeper of the empty throne, who has guided humanity since the Void Century. Immortal? Sanji's visible eyebrow rose skeptically. Indeed. While you fumble in darkness, pursuing the phantom of One Piece, Sama has watched civilizations rise and fall, always maintaining the perfect balance of power that keeps this world from destroying itself. Luffy yawned dramatically. This is boring. If you're gonna fight us, let's fight. If you're gonna keep talking, I'm taking those artifacts and leaving. The elder's face darkened. Impudent child. You stand in the heart of world government power, surrounded by our most elite forces, and still you show no respect. Why should I respect someone who keeps slaves and murders people to hide the truth? Luffy shot back. The truth? The elder laughed again, but this time there was no humor in it. You couldn't comprehend the truth if it were spelled out for you in simple terms. The truth would break your simple pirate mind. Try me, Luffy challenged. The elder studied him for a long moment, then nodded to himself, as if coming to a decision. Very well. Before you die, know this, the world you sail upon is not natural. The Red Line, the Grand Line, the Four Blues, all were created 800 years ago, using the power of the ancient weapons. The world was sundered, divided, and rearranged to prevent a catastrophe that would have ended all human life. What catastrophe? Robin asked, her historian's curiosity overcoming her caution. The awakening of the fourth ancient weapon, the one Joy Boy tried to control and failed. The weapon that nearly destroyed everything before Sama intervened. Fourth weapon. Robin's eyes widened. The texts only mention three, Pluton, Poseidon, and Uranus. Because the fourth was erased from history, the elder replied. Its very name was obliterated from every record, every memory. It was sealed away at the heart of the world, where the pieces of the One Piece serve as its lock and key. So One Piece is just a lock. Luffy frowned, clearly disappointed. It is the key to absolute power, and absolute destruction, the elder corrected. Joy Boy intended to use it to reshape the world according to his naive vision of freedom and equality. Sama understood that humanity cannot handle such freedom, that structure, hierarchy, and control are necessary for survival. That's garbage, Luffy stated flatly. People deserve to be free. That's what being Pirate King is all about. And that is precisely why carriers of the will of D must never reach Laugh Tale, the elder concluded. Your inherent compulsion toward chaotic freedom makes you the perfect vessels for Joy Boy's destructive legacy. He raised his hand again, and the CP0 agents tensed, ready to attack. Enough talk. CP0, eliminate the Straw Hat Pirates. Leave no survivors. Wait. Robin called out desperately. What about the Eternal Tide? You said you weren't trying to stop us from reaching Laugh Tale, but that's clearly not true. The elder smiled coldly. The Eternal Tide is merely a celestial phenomenon, a current that forms when certain astronomical alignments occur. We have no need to stop it because we control what happens when someone follows it to Laugh Tale. How? Robin demanded. These artifacts you see before you. They aren't just historical curiosities. They're the components of a control system, one that allows Sama to determine what is found at Laugh Tale. When Roger arrived, he was shown only what we wished him to see. The same would be true for you, had you lived long enough to make the journey. Before anyone could respond, the massive doors to the Hall of Authority burst open with explosive force. Through the smoke and debris strode a familiar figure in a black cloak adorned with red clouds. Sorry to crash the party, Monkey D. Dragon announced, his deep voice echoing through the hall. But I can't allow you to execute my son just yet. Behind him poured dozens of Revolutionary Army soldiers, led by Sabo, Koala, and other high-ranking officers. They engaged the CP0 agents immediately, the hall erupting into chaotic combat. The elder's face contorted with rage. Dragon! How dare you desecrate the Holy Land? How dare you plot to kill my son? Dragon replied calmly, walking forward as battles raged around him. None of the CP0 agents seemed eager to engage the world's most wanted man directly. Luffy stared at his father in shock. This was only the second time he'd seen Dragon in person, and the first time they'd ever been in the same room together as adults. Dad, he managed finally. Dragon's severe expression softened slightly as he glanced at his son. You've done well, Luffy. I've followed your journey with interest. You've become every bit the man I hoped you would. Touching, the elder sneered, backing toward the dais where the artifacts were displayed. But ultimately meaningless. Even the Revolutionary Army cannot stand against the full might of the world government. Perhaps not, Dragon agreed. But we don't need to defeat you, we just need to buy enough time. Time for what? Dragon smiled grimly. For the rest of our alliance to arrive. As if on cue, another section of wall exploded inward, and through the new opening charged a group of warriors from Elbaf, led by Hadrudin and several elder giants. From another direction came the distinctive sound of a sword being drawn from its scabbard, and Dracul Mihawk stepped calmly into the hall, followed by several former warlords including Boa Hancock and Jinbei, who had apparently abandoned his post guarding the Sunny. What is the meaning of this? The elder demanded, his composure finally cracking completely. How did you all infiltrate Mary Geos? You're not the only one with spies, Dragon replied. We've had people inside the Holy Land for decades. When we learned you were planning to display Joy Boy's artifacts during the reverie, we knew it was time to make our move. And the Straw Hats? A fortunate coincidence, Dragon admitted. Though knowing my son, I should have expected him to arrive at exactly the right moment. Luffy, finally recovering from the shock of seeing his father, turned to his crew. Forget the CP0 guys, we need to grab those artifacts before they can use them. Zoro nodded, already unsheathing his swords. On it, Captain. I'll help, Mihawk stated calmly, appearing beside Zoro as if he'd teleported there. I've been curious about that color-changing blade for some time. The two swordsmen moved toward the dais with deadly intent, cutting through any CP0 agents who dared stand in their way. Their blades moved so quickly they seemed to bend light itself, leaving trails of blood and unconscious bodies in their wake. Meanwhile, Dragon engaged the elder directly, the two clashing with hockey-infused attacks that sent shock waves through the already chaotic hall. The revolutionary leader moved with frightening precision, each strike targeting vital points with devastating force. You've gotten old, strategist, Dragon taunted as he dodged a counterattack. Your reflexes aren't what they were 20 years ago. And you're still the same arrogant upstart, the elder replied, his frail appearance belied by the power of his techniques. Always believing you could change a world order that has stood for 8 centuries. Not change, Dragon corrected, landing a punishing blow to the elder's sternum. Restore. The world before your precious Sama fractured it. Across the hall, Luffy had made it to the dais containing the artifacts. The protective barrier hummed with energy as he approached, but the young pirate didn't hesitate. Drawing back his fist, he coated it with the full force of his conqueror's haki and slammed it against the field. The barrier shattered like glass, the backlash of energy sending Luffy flying backward. He flipped in midair and landed on his feet, grinning despite the smoke rising from his singed knuckles. "Robin," he called. "Get the weird cube thing. I'll grab the hat." As the archaeologist darted forward to retrieve the ancient device, Luffy leapt onto the dais and reached for the giant straw hat. The moment his fingers touched the weathered straw, a jolt of energy surged through his body, and suddenly his mind was elsewhere. He stood on a beach of white sand, facing a figure that seemed both familiar and strange, a tall man with flowing dark hair, wearing a smaller version of the giant straw hat and a serene smile. At last, the man said, his voice echoing as if coming from across a great distance. "A worthy inheritor. Are you Joy Boy?" Luffy asked, somehow knowing the answer already. The figure nodded. "Once, that was my name. Now I am merely memory and will, preserved in the hat that has passed from one potential king to another for centuries." "What's going on? Where are we?" "We are in the space between moments," Joy Boy explained. "When one who carries my will touches the original straw hat, a connection forms across time." "Why me?" Luffy asked. "What's so special about my will?" Joy Boy's smile widened. "You desire true freedom, not just for yourself, but for all. You fight not for glory or conquest, but to protect the right of every soul to chart their own course. That is the will of D. That is my will, carried forward through blood and spirit." The elder called it destructive. "Of course he did," Joy Boy laughed. "To those who control the world, nothing is more destructive than freedom. They fear what they cannot contain. He also said something about a fourth ancient weapon that you tried to control and failed." Joy Boy's expression grew solemn. "Not a weapon. A birthright. The truth of this world that am stole and buried. The one piece is not treasure as most understand it, it is the missing piece of our fractured world." "I don't understand." "You will, when you reach Laugh Tale. But be warned, Monkey D. Luffy, will do anything to stop you from completing what I began. The eternal tide approaches, and with it, your greatest trial." "I'm not afraid," Luffy stated firmly. "I know," Joy Boy nodded. "That's why the hat chose you." Before Luffy could ask what that meant, the vision faded, and he found himself back in the Hall of Authority, the giant straw hat clutched in his hands. Only seconds had passed in the real world, but the knowledge he'd gained felt like a lifetime's worth. "Luffy! We need to go!" Zoro shouted, deflecting a barrage of attacks from a particularly persistent CP0 agent. "This place is about to be swarming with admirals." Sure enough, the distant sound of marine boots could be heard approaching the hall. The revolutionary forces had established a defensive perimeter around the entrances, but they wouldn't hold for long against admiral-level opponents. Robin had secured the cubic device, carefully wrapping it in cloth torn from her disguise. Mihawk and Zoro had claimed the color-shifting sword, which seemed to respond to Zoro's touch by glowing with an inner light. "Dragon!" Luffy called to his father, who had the elder pinned against a column. "We got what we came for." Dragon nodded without taking his eyes off his opponent. "Go to the east balcony. Karasu has transport waiting. We'll hold them off as long as necessary." "But, this isn't goodbye, son," Dragon cut him off with a rare smile. "We'll meet again at Laugh Tale." "You know about that? Why do you think we chose today to strike?" The eternal tide waits for no one, not even family reunions. Luffy hesitated for just a moment, then nodded firmly. See you there, then. He turned to his crew. Let's go. East balcony. As they fought their way through the ongoing battle toward the eastern side of the hall, the massive doors burst open once more. This time, 3 figures in admiral coats strode through: Kizaru, Fujitora, and Ryakujiu. My, Kizaru drawled, surveying the chaos with his usual lazy expression. What a mess you've made of our nice meeting hall. The Revolutionary Army and the Straw Hats in one place, Fujitora added, his hand resting on his sword hilt. Fate has a strange sense of humor. Told you we'd meet again, Straw Hat, Ryakujiu called out, spotting Luffy across the hall. This time there's nowhere to run. Sabo stepped forward to intercept the admirals, flames erupting around his body as he activated the power of the Mera Mera no Mi. You'll have to go through me first. And me, Hancock added, joining him with her head held high. No one touches Luffy while I draw breath. Such devoted allies, Kizaru remarked. Too bad they'll die for nothing. The admirals and revolutionary commanders clashed in a display of power that shook the very foundations of Mary Geos. The Straw Hats used the distraction to slip through a side door that led to the eastern balcony overlooking the clouds below. As Dragon had promised, a massive black crow-like creature waited there, Karasu in his transformed state, large enough to carry all of them. All aboard, Usopp quipped nervously as they climbed onto the revolutionary commander's back. Next stop, anywhere but here. Once everyone was secure, Karasu launched himself from the balcony, powerful wings carrying them away from Mary Geos just as explosions began rocking the Hall of Authority behind them. What about the others? Nami asked, looking back at the chaos they'd left behind. Dragon knows what he's doing, Robin assured her, though her own expression was concerned. The Revolutionary Army has been planning this operation for years. They'll have escape routes. And Dad said he'd meet us at Laugh Tale, Luffy added, still clutching the giant straw hat. We need to make sure we get there on time. As they soared through the clouds, a massive shock wave erupted from Mary Geos, powerful enough to buffet them even at a distance. Looking back, they saw a section of the Holy Land literally crumbling away, falling in massive chunks toward the ocean below. What the hell was that? Zoro demanded. Dragon's parting gift, perhaps, Robin suggested. Or a desperate move by the 5 elders to stop the uprising. Luffy said nothing, his eyes fixed on the artifacts they'd claimed. The straw hat seemed to pulse with a faint energy in his hands, while the cubic device Robin held emitted a soft humming sound that grew louder as they descended toward the ocean. Where are we going? Sanji asked Karasu. The Sunny's hidden in that underwater cave system. The crowman cawed in response, which none of them could understand. He says Dragon arranged for your ship to be relocated, Robin translated. The Revolutionary Army has been watching over it. We're heading to a rendezvous point now. Sure enough, as they broke through the cloud cover, they spotted the 1,000 Sunny sailing below, guided by Revolutionary Army vessels that flanked it protectively. Chopper, Brook, and Frankie could be seen on deck, waving frantically at their approaching comrades. Karasu descended rapidly, depositing the straw hat safely onto their ship's lawn deck before transforming back into his human form, a stern-faced man with crow-like features. Dragon-san ordered me to escort you safely away from marine territory, he explained curtly. We have a narrow window before the Navy's full forces mobilize against us. What about our friends? Luffy asked. The revolutionaries, the giants, the former warlords. Each has their own extraction plan, Karasu replied. But make no mistake, what happened today is the beginning of open war. The world government will retaliate with everything they have. Then we better move fast, Luffy decided. Robin, how long until the eternal tide? Just under 10 days, she replied. Barely enough time to reach the coordinates if we maintain top speed. Luffy nodded, then turned to address his full crew. now reunited on the Sunny's deck. Listen up. Today we learned something important about One Piece. It's not just treasure, it's something that could change the whole world. The world government has been keeping it secret for 800 years, and they're willing to kill anyone who gets close to it. He held up the giant straw hat. But we got these artifacts that are connected to Joy Boy and the Void Century. Robin thinks they'll help us reach Laugh Tale when the eternal tide flows. What exactly are those things, Robin-san? Brooke asked, eyeing the artifacts curiously. Robin carefully unwrapped the cubic device. Based on what we learned from the Elder, this appears to be a navigational tool specifically designed to track the eternal tide. The symbols match astronomical charts dating back to the Void Century. And the hat? Chopper asked. It belonged to Joy Boy himself, Luffy answered before Robin could speak. And it's been passed down to people with the will of D ever since. How do you know that? Nami asked suspiciously. Luffy tapped his temple. The hat told me. Well, Joy Boy's memory in the hat told me. The crew exchanged concerned glances. Did you hit your head during the fighting? Chopper asked worriedly. I know it sounds crazy, Luffy admitted. But when I touched the hat, I saw Joy Boy. He said One Piece is the missing piece of our fractured world and that it's my birthright to find it. That aligns with what the Elder revealed, Robin confirmed. He claimed the world was physically rearranged during the Void Century, that the Red Line and Grand Line were artificially created. Created how? Frankie asked skeptically. We're talking about moving continents. That's not possible, even with the technology we have today. The ancient weapons, Robin replied. Specifically designed for the task, according to the Elder. And controlled by whatever this fourth power is that they erased from history. Karasu, who had been listening silently, finally spoke. Dragon-san ordered me to tell you one more thing before I depart. The cube device requires activation before it can guide you to the eternal tide. There's a specific sequence of inputs based on the astronomical alignments of the 4 road poneglyphs. I can handle that, Robin assured him. The cipher key from Odin's journal should help decipher the activation sequence. Good, Karasu nodded. Then my mission is complete. May the wind favor your sails, Straw Hat Pirates. The future of the world may well depend on your success. With that, he transformed back into his crow form and took to the skies, circling once above the Sunny before flying off toward the distant horizon where the revolutionary ships had already disappeared. Dramatic fellow, Sanji remarked, lighting a fresh cigarette. He's not wrong though, Jinbei said gravely. After what happened at Mary Geo's today, the world is about to change irrevocably. War between the revolutionaries and the world government has been brewing for decades. This was the spark that will ignite it. All the more reason for us to reach Laugh Tale quickly, Luffy stated, his usual carefree demeanor replaced by determined focus. Nami, set course for the coordinates Robin calculated. Full speed ahead. Aye, Captain. Nami replied, already consulting her maps and log pose. With favorable winds, we should reach the vicinity in 7 days. As the Thousand Sunny turned toward their final destination, none of the crew noticed the small mechanical bird perched on the highest point of the ship's mast, a surveillance device broadcasting their every word to multiple interested parties. In the ruins of Mary Geos, the 5 elders gathered in a secret chamber deep beneath the surface, where the battles above couldn't reach. 4 of them bore injuries from the unprecedented attack, but their expressions remained resolute. The artifacts have been taken, as planned, the strategist reported, nursing a broken arm. The Straw Hat crew believes they've won a great victory. And Dragon, asked another elder, known as the scientist, his lab coat stained with blood from a head wound. Escaped with most of his forces, the strategist replied. But that was expected. His role in this drama is secondary. And what of Im-sama's directive? Inquired the third elder, the saint, whose religious vestments remained somehow immaculate despite the chaos. Proceeding exactly as designed, confirmed the fourth, the general, his military uniform torn but his bearing still proud. The surveillance pacifista is in place. It will track the straw hats all the way to Laugh Tale. And the artifacts? Asked the fifth and final elder, the judge, who had remained silent until now. Functional, the scientist assured him. When activated at Laugh Tale, they will serve their true purpose, not to reveal the One Piece, but to ensure it remains sealed for another century. Unless the boy truly is Joy Boy's inheritor, the saint cautioned. The prophecies speak of one who would break the cycle. Prophecies are for the superstitious, the scientist scoffed. We deal in certainties. For 800 years, we have maintained control. This generation will be no different. Still, the strategist mused, we should inform Im-sama of these developments. The eternal tide approaches, and with it, the moment of greatest vulnerability for our perfect world. The five old men rose in unison and approached a seemingly blank wall at the rear of the chamber. The saint pressed his palm against it, and the wall dissolved, revealing a passage that led deeper into darkness. At the end of that passage waited Im, the immortal ruler who had guided the world from shadows for 8 centuries. And as the 5 elders approached to deliver their report, the being once known as Joy Boy's greatest enemy smiled in anticipation of the confrontation to come. The board was set. The pieces were moving. And in 10 days' time, on the shores of Laugh Tale, the truth buried for 800 years would finally resurface. Whether it would bring dawn or darkness remained to be seen. 5 days into their journey toward Laugh Tale, the Sunny encountered a storm unlike any they'd faced before. Black clouds churned with unnatural energy, lightning struck in perfectly symmetrical patterns, and the sea itself seemed to boil with barely contained rage. This isn't natural. Nami shouted over the howling wind, her climatact working overtime to deflect the worst of the lightning strikes. Something's generating this storm artificially. The world government? Jinbei suggested as he fought to maintain control of the helm. No, Robin called back, the cubic artifact clutched protectively against her chest. It's the artifact. It's activated itself in proximity to the Eternal Tide's formation point. The device now glowed with an intense blue light, the ancient symbols on its surface rotating and rearranging themselves in complex patterns. With each new configuration, the storm intensified, as if the cube was communicating with the very fabric of nature. Can you shut it down? Frankie yelled, using his massive body to shield the more vulnerable crew members from debris flying across the deck. I don't think we should, Robin replied. I believe it's calibrating itself to guide us through the storm. Look. She pointed ahead, where a narrow corridor of calm sea had appeared amidst the churning waves, a path leading directly into the heart of the storm. That's our route, Luffy decided instantly. Jinbei, take us through. The fishman helmsman nodded grimly and spun the wheel, guiding the Sunny into the mysterious passage. As soon as they entered the corridor of calm, the noise of the storm diminished, though they could still see it raging just yards away on either side. It's like we're in the eye of the hurricane, Chopper observed in awe. Not the eye, Robin corrected, studying the readings on the cubic device. We're in a dimensional fold, a space where the normal laws of nature are temporarily suspended. In Japanese, Zoro requested dryly. We're sailing between realities, Robin simplified. This path exists only because the eternal tide is beginning to flow, thinning the barrier between our world and Laugh Tale. The corridor extended before them, seemingly endless, until suddenly the storm vanished entirely. The Sunny emerged into water so still they perfectly reflected the star-filled sky above, creating the disorienting illusion that they were sailing through space itself. Where are we? Usopp whispered, afraid to break the perfect silence that surrounded them. The calm confluence, Robin answered, her voice filled with academic excitement. The ancient texts mention it, a place where all 4 blues and the Grand Line briefly connect during the eternal tide. Ahead of them, the still waters began to move, forming a subtle current that pulled the Sunny gently forward. The cubic device's glow intensified, and projected from its top surface appeared a holographic map unlike any they'd seen before, showing a world without the red line, where the continents formed a single connected landmass surrounded by open ocean. The world before the void century, Robin breathed, tracing the unfamiliar coastlines with her finger. Before the world government rearranged it. Is that what One Piece does? Nami asked. Puts the world back the way it was? I believe so, Robin nodded. Based on everything we've learned, One Piece is likely the control mechanism for the ancient weapons, allowing them to be used in concert to restore the original geography. That would change everything, Sanji said, his cigarette forgotten between his lips. Trade routes, military strongholds, the very basis of the world government's power. No wonder they've killed to keep it secret, Zoro added grimly. Luffy, who had been unusually quiet, stood at the figurehead staring ahead. The giant straw hat sat atop his own smaller one, creating a comical image that somehow still carried dignity. I can feel it, he said suddenly. Laugh tail. It's close. As if responding to his words, the current strengthened, carrying the Sunny forward with increasing speed. The stars above began to blur, and the reflective water below rippled with energy that seemed to emanate from somewhere just beyond the horizon. Everyone, prepare yourselves, Jinbei warned, his experienced sailor's instincts on high alert. Whatever happens next, stay with the ship. The Thousand Sunny crested a wave that hadn't been there a moment before, and suddenly they were racing downward, picking up impossible speed as the water beneath them transformed into a literal river flowing through the sea, the eternal tide itself. Colors streaked past them, blues and greens and purples that no one had names for, while the sky above cycled through day and night in seconds. The crew clung to the ship as it rocketed forward, guided by forces beyond their control or understanding. And then, as suddenly as it began, the wild ride ended. The Sunny glided smoothly into a sheltered bay surrounded by lush vegetation, the water once again calm and clear. Ahead of them stretched a white sand beach leading to a forested island that rose to a central peak crowned with what appeared to be ancient ruins. Laugh tail, Robin whispered, tears forming in her eyes at the historic moment. Luffy jumped from the figurehead onto the beach, his feet touching the legendary island that had remained hidden for centuries. The rest of the crew followed more cautiously, weapons ready and senses alert for any trap or guardian. It feels normal, Chopper said, sniffing the air curiously. What were you expecting? Zoro asked, though his hand remained on his swords. I don't know. Something more, magical. As they ventured further inland, following a path that seemed to have been deliberately cleared, Robin continued studying the cubic device, which now projected different images, schematics for massive machinery, diagrams of the ancient weapons, and what appeared to be instruction sequences. This is incredible, she murmured. The cube contains complete technical specifications for Pluton, Poseidon, and Uranus, plus activation protocols for something called Pangea Restoration. That must be the process for putting the world back together, Nami reasoned. Exactly, Robin nodded. And according to this, all three ancient weapons must be used in precise coordination at specific points around the world. So One Piece isn't here? Usopp asked, looking around in confusion. It's just instructions. The greatest treasure isn't gold or jewels, Jinbei reminded him. It's knowledge and the power to change the world. As they reached the ruins at the island's peak, they found themselves in what appeared to be an ancient control center. Stone platforms arranged in a circle surrounded a central dais, each platform marked with symbols corresponding to one of the ancient weapons. At the center of the dais stood a simple stone pedestal with a hand-shaped depression on its surface. This is it, Robin said, approaching the pedestal reverently. The control system for the One Piece. How does it work? Frankie asked, examining the ancient technology with professional interest. Robin placed the cubic device on one of the platforms, where it fit perfectly into a depression shape to hold it. Immediately, the entire ruins lit up with the same blue energy that had emanated from the cube, lines of power flowing through channels carved into the stone floor. According to the projections, she explained, someone must place their hand on the central pedestal while wearing Joy Boy's hat. The system will recognize the inheritor of his will and activate. All eyes turned to Luffy, who stood quietly examining the pedestal. "Are you ready, Captain?" Zoro asked. "Once you activate this, there's no going back. The world will change forever." Luffy adjusted the giant straw hat on his head, his expression unusually solemn. "Before I do this, I want everyone to be sure. This isn't just my decision. We're a crew, and we decide together." The straw hats exchanged surprised glances. Their captain rarely asked for consensus, not because he was dictatorial, but because they trusted his instincts implicitly. "I'm with you," Zoro said immediately. "Whatever happens." "Me too," Sanji added without hesitation. One by one, each crew member voiced their support, until all had affirmed their commitment to seeing this through to the end. Luffy nodded, satisfied. "Then let's change the world." He stepped onto the dais and placed his hand into the depression on the pedestal. For a moment, nothing happened, then the giant straw hat began to glow with the same blue energy as the ruins, and Luffy's eyes widened as information flooded his mind. "I can see it," he whispered. "The whole world, the way it was, the way it is, the way it could be." The energy spread from his hand throughout his body, lifting him slightly off the ground as the ancient system recognized Joy Boy's inheritor. Images appeared in the air around him, holographic projections showing the activation of Pluton, Poseidon, and Uranus at different points around the world. "The ancient weapons are awakening," Robin narrated, watching the projections with academic fascination. "Shirahoshi's power as Poseidon is activating automatically through her connection to the Sea Kings. Pluton is rising from its hiding place beneath Alabasta. And Uranus." She trailed off as the third projection showed something unexpected, a massive device hidden beneath Mary Geos itself, already active and working to counter the other two weapons. "The world government controls Uranus," she realized aloud. That's what the elder meant when he said they control what happens at Laugh Tale. The projections flickered, showing a conflict between the ancient weapons as they worked at cross purposes, Pluton and Poseidon attempting to restore the world's original geography while Uranus fought to maintain the status quo. "They're deadlocked," Frankie observed. "The system can't complete the restoration while Uranus opposes it." Luffy, still suspended in the energy field, opened his eyes. They glowed with the same blue light that suffused the ruins. "There's something else," he said, his voice overlaid with harmonics that weren't his own. "The fourth power. The one they erased." "What is it?" Robin asked eagerly. "Not what," Luffy corrected. "Who?" With his free hand, he pointed to his chest. "Me. Us. All carriers of the will of D. We're the fourth ancient weapon, human beings with the innate ability to hear and understand the voice of all things." Joy Boy wasn't trying to control a weapon, he was trying to awaken the power in all people. "I don't understand," Nami said, shaking her head in confusion. "The world government didn't just rearrange the world physically," Luffy explained, knowledge flowing through him from the ancient system. "They suppressed humanity's natural connection to nature, the ability to communicate with all living things. They feared a world where everyone could hear the voice of all things, because such a world couldn't be controlled. So the One Piece," Robin began, "is the restoration of that connection," Luffy finished. "Not just putting the continents back together, but awakening what was suppressed in humanity." Suddenly, the energy field around Luffy flickered and destabilized. The projections showed Uranus increasing in power, actively interfering with the restoration process. "Something's wrong," Robin called out. "The system is being overridden from Mary Geos." Luffy growled, the name coming to him through the ancient knowledge flowing into his mind. "They're using Uranus to stop us." The ruins began to shake, stones cracking as conflicting energies fought for control of the system. Luffy grimaced in pain as the pedestal beneath his hand grew hot. "Luffy!" Chopper cried in alarm. "You need to let go." No, Luffy replied through gritted teeth. If I let go now, the connection breaks, and we might never get another chance. But the system is tearing itself apart. Frankie shouted as chunks of the ancient ceiling began to fall around them. Then I'll force it through, Luffy decided. His body began to glow red as he activated his Devil Fruit Awakening, his rubber form entering Gear 5th. The combination of the ancient blue energy and his own fiery power created a purple aura that expanded outward from his body. What are you doing? Zoro demanded, shielding his eyes from the intense light. Using my power to amplify the connection, Luffy explained, his voice strained but determined. If M wants to fight for control, I'll give them a fight they won't forget. The purple energy shot upward from the ruins in a massive pillar that pierced the sky, visible for hundreds of miles in all directions. On the horizon, a matching beam of light appeared, emanating from Mary Geo's far across the sea, where Uranus fought to maintain control. The two energy beams connected in the stratosphere, creating a spectacular aurora that bathed the world below in otherworldly light. For a moment, they seemed evenly matched, neither able to overcome the other. Then Luffy did something unexpected. Instead of pushing harder against the resistance, he pulled, drawing the opposing energy toward him, absorbing it into the ancient system at Laugh Tale. What are you doing? Robin shouted over the deafening roar of energy. Taking control of Uranus. Luffy called back. M thinks they can stop us. Let's see them try when we have all three weapons working together. Through the connection between the energy beams, Luffy extended his will toward Mary Geos, toward the ancient device hidden beneath the Holy Land, toward him who sought to control it. And in that moment, something extraordinary happened. The projections showed people all across the world looking up at the aurora in wonder, and as they watched, something awakened within them. The suppressed ability to hear the voice of all things stirred in every human being on the planet, triggered by the energy radiating from Laugh Tale. It's working! Robin exclaimed. The global awakening is beginning. The beam from Mary Geos flickered and weakened as M's control over Uranus faltered in the face of humanity's collective awakening. Luffy seized the opportunity, channeling every ounce of his will through the connection. Enough! He roared, his voice carrying impossible distances through the energy network. This world belongs to everyone, not just the world government. With a final surge of power, Luffy overcame the resistance. The opposing beam collapsed, and the energy from all three ancient weapons flowed through Laugh Tale's control system in perfect harmony. The world shuddered. Across the globe, people fell to their knees as the ground beneath them trembled. Not in destruction, but in restoration, the beginning of a process that would gradually, safely return the world to its original form. On Laugh Tale, the energy field around Luffy finally dissipated, leaving him exhausted but triumphant. He collapsed to his knees, the giant straw hat sliding from his head to roll across the stone floor. Did it work? He asked weakly. Robin consulted the projections, which now showed a peaceful, harmonious interaction between the ancient weapons. Yes, Captain. The restoration has begun. It will take time, perhaps years for the continents to fully realign, but the process is underway and cannot be stopped. And the people? The voice of all things. Awakening everywhere, she confirmed, wonder in her voice. Reports are already coming in through the transponder snails. People around the world are experiencing an expanded awareness, connecting with animals, plants, even the weather itself. Luffy grinned, his usual carefree expression returning. Good. That's what being free is all about, connecting with everything around you. Zoro helped his captain to his feet. So, is this it? Did we find the One Piece? Luffy looked around at the ancient control center, at the projections showing the world beginning its transformation, at his loyal crew who had followed him to the literal end of the world. Yeah, he said simply. This is One Piece. Not just treasure, but the piece that was missing from our world, our connection to each other and everything living. So what now? Nami asked. What happens after you find the ultimate treasure and become Pirate King? Luffy's grin widened. Now comes the fun part. We get to sail a whole new world, one without barriers, without the red line, without the Grand Line. Just open sea in every direction. Sounds like a pirate's dream, Sanji commented with a smile. Exactly, Luffy agreed. And I'm still gonna be the freest person on that sea. As the Straw Hat Pirates made their way back to the Thousand Sunny, the sky above continued to shimmer with ethereal light, the visible manifestation of a world being reborn. The news of what had happened at Laugh Tale spread rapidly, carried not just by transponder snails but by the newly awakened connection between all living things. In the ruins of Mary Geos, the 5 elders knelt before him, whose immortal existence had finally come to a crossroads. It is done, I'm acknowledged, 800 years of certainty finally crumbling. The inheritor has succeeded where Joy Boy failed. What shall we do, Sama? The strategist asked, his voice trembling with unprecedented fear. Removed the ancient crown that had concealed their features for centuries, revealing a face marked by both incredible age and timeless youth. We adapt, the immortal ruler decided. Or we perish. The age of secrets is over. The age of connection begins. And across the sea, standing proud on the figurehead of the Thousand Sunny as it sailed away from Laugh Tale, Monkey D., Luffy, the 5th Emperor, the inheritor of Joy Boy's will, and now, finally, the Pirate King, looked toward the horizon with unbridled excitement for whatever adventures awaited in the reborn world. Set sail, he commanded, pointing toward open water. Our greatest journey is just beginning. Chapter 3, Crown of the King. Dawn broke over Laugh Tale as the Thousand Sunny rocked gently in the sheltered bay. The events of yesterday still hung in the air, literally, as faint ribbons of aurora continued to dance across the sky, marking the beginning of the world's transformation. Luffy sat cross-legged on the beach, watching the sunrise with unusual stillness. The giant straw hat rested beside him, its weathered brim catching the golden light. For once, the energetic captain seemed content to simply exist in the moment, letting the enormity of what they'd accomplished sink in. So this is what it feels like, he murmured to himself, being Pirate King. Footsteps in the sand announced Robin's approach. The archaeologist carried 2 steaming mugs, offering one to her captain as she sat beside him. Couldn't sleep, she asked. Luffy accepted the coffee with a grateful nod. Too many voices. Ever since yesterday, I can hear everything. The fish in the bay, the birds in the trees, even the Sunny talking about how proud she is to have carried us here. Robin smiled. The voice of all things. Your connection has grown stronger than anyone's. Is everyone experiencing this? To varying degrees, Robin confirmed. Reports coming in through the transponder snail suggest people worldwide are developing new awareness, nothing as strong as yours, but enough to fundamentally change how humanity relates to the world around them. Luffy took a sip of coffee, grimaced at the bitterness, then downed it anyway. And the physical changes? The continents moving? Proceeding gradually, as planned. The ancient weapons are working in harmony to ensure the transition happens slowly enough to prevent catastrophic damage. Current estimates suggest complete restoration will take approximately 5 years. 5 years. Luffy repeated, watching the horizon. That's a long time for the world to adjust to everything. It's already beginning, Robin said, her voice gentle but excited. The world government's authority collapsed almost immediately when people realized what had been hidden from them. Revolutionary cells are establishing provisional governments in most regions. Dragon is coordinating from what remains of Mary Geos. And the 5 elders? Robin's expression darkened slightly. No word on Im's whereabouts. The 5 elders have been taken into custody by revolutionary forces. They'll stand trial for crimes against humanity dating back centuries. Luffy nodded, satisfied. He picked up the giant straw hat, turning it over in his hands thoughtfully. You know what's weird? I thought becoming Pirate King would feel like the end of something. But it feels like the beginning. Perhaps that's the point, Robin suggested. The journey to find One Piece was never the end goal, it was preparing you for what comes after. What comes after, Luffy repeated, standing and stretching his arms toward the brightening sky. I like the sound of that. By midday, the rest of the crew had gathered on the beach for an impromptu council. Maps were spread across a makeshift table, weighted down with stones and driftwood. These are the latest projections from Revolutionary Headquarters, Nami explained, pointing to pencil marks she'd added to the charts. The red line has already begun to sink in several places, creating new passages between the blues. Within 6 months, ships will be able to sail directly from East Blue to South Blue without using the Grand Line. And what about the currents? Jinbei asked, studying the charts with a fishman's expertise. The Grand Line's magnetic fields were artificially created to isolate the inner seas. Breaking down gradually, Nami replied. The calm belts are already showing increased wind activity. Sea kings are migrating to deeper waters as their territories shift. Frankie whistled, impressed. That's some supermassive engineering. The ancient weapons are basically terraforming the entire planet. More accurately, they're unterraforming it, Robin corrected. Returning it to its natural state before the world government's interference. So what's our next move? Zoro asked, addressing the question they'd all been avoiding. The crew fell silent, looking to Luffy. Their journey had been clear for so long, find the One Piece, make Luffy Pirate King. Now that both goals had been accomplished, what remained? Luffy placed the giant straw hat on the table, centering it over the world map like a crown. The world's changing fast. People are scared and confused. They need to see that this change is good, that freedom is nothing to be afraid of. You're suggesting we become ambassadors? Sanji asked, eyebrow raised skeptically. I'm suggesting we be pirates, Luffy grinned. We sail wherever we want, help whoever needs helping, fight whoever needs fighting. Same as always, but bigger. How is that different from what we've been doing? Usopp asked. Because now when we do it, we're showing the world what the Pirate King stands for, Luffy explained. Not conquest or treasure, but freedom for everyone. The crew exchanged glances, a new understanding dawning. A role model Pirate King, Brook mused. How revolutionary. Though I have no eyes to see the vision. Yo-ho-ho-ho. I like it, Chopper declared, his eyes sparkling. We can help people adjust to hearing the voice of all things too. Some might find it overwhelming at first. And we can document the geographical changes, Nami added, already envisioning new maps. Create navigation charts for the transforming seas. Luffy grinned, watching his crew embrace the future with characteristic enthusiasm. Then it's settled. Our next adventure is helping shape the new world. There's just one problem, Jinbei cautioned. The chaos of transition will bring opportunists. Not everyone will welcome these changes. You mean Blackbeard, Zoro stated bluntly. Jinbei nodded. Among others. The power vacuum left by the world government's collapse will attract those who seek control rather than freedom. Let them come, Luffy shrugged, unconcerned. We've beaten everyone who stood in our way so far. Nothing's changed just because I'm Pirate King now. Everything's changed, Robin corrected gently. You're no longer pursuing the throne, you're sitting on it. That makes you a target for anyone who wants to claim the title for themselves. As if summoned by her words, the Thousand Sunny's alarm bell began ringing frantically. The crew rushed back to the ship, where the transponder snail was broadcasting an emergency signal. Nami answered it, and a familiar voice crackled through. Straw Hat. Can you hear me? It's Koala from the Revolutionary Army. We hear you, Nami confirmed. What's happening? Blackbeard's fleet has been traced heading directly for Laugh Tale, Koala reported urgently. They've somehow found a way to navigate the eternal tide. Estimated arrival within 3 hours. How is that possible? Robin demanded. The tide should have receded by now. They've captured a marine scientist who worked on the government's eternal tide research, Koala explained. Using that knowledge plus Blackbeard's dark powers, they've forced open a passage. Luffy's expression hardened. How many ships? All of them. His entire armada plus allies, at least 30 vessels. And that's not all. We've received reports that surviving world government forces are converging on your location as well. It seems both factions want to seize control of Laugh Tale's ancient system. Let me guess, Sanji said, lighting a cigarette. They think controlling the ancient weapons restoration process would give them leverage over the emerging world order. Precisely, Koala confirmed. Dragon is dispatching revolutionary forces to assist you, but they won't arrive in time to prevent the initial attack. We don't need help, Luffy stated confidently. Tell Dragon thanks, but the Pirate King can handle his own battles. After ending the transmission, the crew immediately began preparations for the coming conflict. Weapons were checked and readied, the Sunny's defense systems activated, and battle stations assigned. This won't be like our previous encounters with Blackbeard, Jinbei warned as they worked. He's coming with his full strength, desperate and determined. Good, Luffy replied, cracking his knuckles. I've been wanting a rematch since Marineford. This time I'll finish what Ace started. Robin approached with the giant straw hat and the cubic device. Captain, we should consider moving these artifacts to safety. If Blackbeard captures them, he won't, Luffy interrupted. Because I'll be wearing the hat, and you'll be using that cube thing to monitor the restoration process. But the risk is part of being Pirate King, Luffy finished. We don't hide our treasures. We defend them. 2 hours later, the horizon darkened with approaching ships. Black sails emblazoned with Blackbeard's modified Jolly Roger stretched in a line that seemed to encircle the entire island. They're trying to cut off all escape routes, Nami observed from the crow's nest, spyglass in hand. Classic encirclement tactic. Who said anything about escaping? Zoro replied, his 3 swords already drawn and gleaming in the midday sun. The Straw Hats had positioned the Sunny at the mouth of the bay, forming their first line of defense. On the beach behind them, Frankie had hastily constructed makeshift fortifications using materials from the island. Robin stood at the control center ruins, the cubic device active and monitoring the worldwide restoration process. As Blackbeard's flagship approached within hailing distance, the Emperor himself appeared at its bow, his massive form unmistakable even at a distance. Zihahaha, his distinctive laugh carried across the water. Straw Hat. Congratulations on finding One Piece. I've come to offer my personal thanks, by relieving you of the burden of Pirate King. After all, you've had the title for almost a day now. Isn't that long enough? Luffy stepped onto the Sunny's figurehead, the giant straw hat proudly displayed on his head. You're too late, Teach. One Piece has already been activated. The world is changing, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Stop it? Why would I want to stop it? Blackbeard called back, genuine amusement in his voice. A world in chaos is perfect for a man like me. I'm not here to prevent the transformation, I'm here to control it. With the ancient system under my command, I'll reshape the emerging world in my image. That's not how it works, Luffy replied. One Piece isn't about control. It's about freedom. Freedom is just another word for unrestrained power, Blackbeard countered. And I intend to have it all. Zihahaha. He raised his hand, and on his signal, the armada began to move. Ships split from the main formation, maneuvering to surround the bay from all sides. They're trying to overwhelm us with numbers, Jinbei observed grimly. Then we'd better thin them out, Luffy decided. Frankie. Ready the Jaian cannon. Super ready, Captain, the cyborg confirmed from below deck. Target acquired. Fire. The Thousand Sunny's most powerful weapon discharged with earth-shaking force, a beam of concentrated energy slicing through three of Blackbeard's ships before they could take defensive positions. The vessels broke apart in spectacular explosions, sending debris and pirates flying. "First blood to us," Zoro noted with satisfaction. But the victory was short-lived. From Blackbeard's flagship emerged a pulsing darkness that spread across the water like spilled ink, the power of the dark fruit extending its influence. "He's trying to create a black hole to pull us in," Nami shouted in warning. "Not on my watch," Jinbei growled, stepping to the bow. The fishman helmsman summoned his fishman karate techniques, generating a massive water current that pushed against the encroaching darkness. Water versus darkness, let's see which is stronger. While Jinbei held the dark pull at bay, more of Blackbeard's ships closed in from other directions. Cannons roared as they came into range, sending bombardments toward both the Sunny and the beach fortifications. Luffy leapt into action, his body shifting into gear fourth as he took to the air. "Sanji, Zoro, with me. Let's take the fight to them." The monster trio launched themselves toward the nearest enemy vessels, each targeting a different ship. Luffy's enlarged fist shattered the mast of one brigantine, while Zoro's flying dragon blaze technique cut another clean in half. Sanji's flaming kick set a third ablaze, the pirate crew abandoning ship as the flames reached their powder magazine. Back on the Sunny, Usopp manned the main defensive position, his advanced sniping skills picking off enemy gunners before they could target the ship's vital areas. Brook and Chopper worked in tandem, the skeleton's soul powers freezing adversaries in place while the reindeer's new combat transformations dealt devastating follow-up blows. "They're still coming," Nami called out, manipulating her climate tech to create localized storm systems above key enemy vessels. "There are too many." She was right. Despite the Straw Hat's valiant defense, Blackbeard's numerical advantage was telling. For every ship they disabled, 3 more took its place, gradually tightening the noose around Laugh Tale. And then a new threat appeared on the horizon, a fleet of marine battleships bearing the insignia of the world government's elite forces. "Perfect," Usopp groaned, spotting them through his goggles. "Just what we needed." But the Marines didn't immediately join Blackbeard's assault. Instead, they opened fire on the rear of his armada, creating confusion in the pirate ranks. "They're fighting each other?" Chopper asked in bewilderment. "Makes sense," Nami realized. Both want control of Laugh Tale, but neither wants the other to have it. "A 3-way battle then," Jinbei concluded, still maintaining his water barrier against Blackbeard's darkness. On the flagship, Blackbeard himself had noticed the marine arrival. His expression darkened with rage as his carefully planned encirclement fell into disarray. "Damn those government dogs!" he roared, darkness swirling around both hands. "I'll deal with them after I finish Straw Hat. Shiryu. Van Augur. Deal with those marine ships. The rest of you, press the attack. Take the island at all costs." The battle intensified as Blackbeard's top commanders engaged the marine force while the remaining pirate ships renewed their assault on the Sunny. Cannonballs rained down from all directions, many disintegrating midair thanks to Nami's weather control and Usopp's sharpshooting, but some finding their mark against the Sunny's reinforced hull. "We can't hold this position much longer," Frankie called out after a particularly heavy barrage rocked the ship. "Hull integrity at 60% and falling. Fall back to the beach," Nami ordered. "We'll make our stand with Robin at the ruins." As the Sunny retreated into the bay, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji continued their aerial assault against the advancing ships. Their hockey-infused attacks wreaked havoc among Blackbeard's forces, but the sheer number of enemies made progress slow. Luffy paused midair, hovering in gear fourth as he assessed the battlefield. Something felt wrong about the attack pattern. Blackbeard's ships pressed forward relentlessly despite heavy losses, almost as if it's a diversion. Luffy suddenly realized. "Zoro. Sanji. Back to the island." Blackbeard isn't on his flagship anymore. The swordsman and cook immediately disengaged from their current battles, following their captain as he rocketed back toward Laugh Tale. As they approached the beach, their worst fears were confirmed. A dark portal had opened on the sand, through which Blackbeard himself stepped along with his strongest commanders. Too late, Straw Hat. Blackbeard called out triumphantly. While you were busy with my fleet, I used my power to create a shortcut. Now the ancient control system will be mine. He and his commanders charged up the path toward the ruins where Robin maintained her vigil over the cubic device. Only Frankie, Brooke, and Chopper stood in their way, having just reached the beach with the retreating Sunny. Stop them! Luffy shouted, pushing his gear forth to maximum speed. But he wouldn't reach them in time. Blackbeard's darkness extended before him like a battering ram, smashing through Frankie's hasty barricades. The cyborg stood his ground, transforming into his General Frankie battle form to meet the charge head-on. You'll have to go through me first, Beard Bro. Frankie challenged, mechanical fists raised. Gladly, Blackbeard grinned, darkness coalescing around his massive fist. Black Vortex. The attack connected with devastating force, crumpling Frankie's mechanical armor and sending him flying backward into a rock face. Brooke and Chopper moved to intercept, but Blackbeard's commanders engaged them, keeping them occupied while their captain continued toward the ruins. Robin saw him coming and activated her devil fruit powers. Mille Fleur, Gigantesco Mano. Enormous arms sprouted from the ground, forming barriers across Blackbeard's path. The Emperor laughed, unimpressed. Clever, but useless against me. He charged straight through the arms, his darkness absorbing and negating Robin's devil fruit power wherever they made contact. The dark fruit cancels all other powers. You should know that by now. Robin didn't retreat. Instead, she stood protectively in front of the cubic device, determination etched across her features. You don't understand what you're doing. The restoration process is delicate, interfering could cause catastrophic damage worldwide. Let it burn, Blackbeard replied callously. I'll rule whatever remains. He reached for her with darkness-shrouded hands, but before he could make contact, a red and black blur slammed into him from above with the force of a meteor. Get away from my friend! Luffy roared, his gear fourth fist driving Blackbeard face-first into the stone floor of the ruins. The Emperor coughed blood but laughed even as he struggled to his feet. There you are, Straw Hat. I was wondering when you'd join the party. Zihahaha. Luffy stood between Blackbeard and Robin, the giant straw hat still somehow attached to his head despite the violent entrance. Robin, get that cube thing to safety. I'll handle Teach. But Captain, go. Luffy ordered, not taking his eyes off Blackbeard. Protect the process. I've got this. Robin hesitated only briefly before carefully gathering the cubic device and retreating from the ruins. Blackbeard watched her go but made no move to pursue. Smart, he acknowledged. Keeping the control device away from the fight. But it doesn't matter. Once I've dealt with you, I'll find it easily enough. You're not dealing with anyone, Luffy replied, his body shifting as he allowed Gear Fourth to subside. This ends now, Teach. Oh. Blackbeard raised an eyebrow, genuinely curious. And how do you plan to accomplish that? You know my darkness absorbs all devil fruit powers. Your rubber abilities are useless against me. Luffy smiled, a confident, knowing expression that gave Blackbeard pause. You're right. That's why I'm not going to use them. Before Blackbeard could process this statement, Luffy moved, not with the elastic bouncing of his gear forms, but with pure physical speed enhanced by advanced haki. His fist, coated in Conqueror's haki so dense it appeared to crystallize the air around it, connected with Blackbeard's jaw before the larger man could activate his darkness. The impact sent the Emperor crashing through a stone column, his eyes wide with shock. He hadn't even seen Luffy move. What the hell? Blackbeard growled, climbing back to his feet. Since when can you? He didn't finish the sentence as Luffy was already on him again, delivering a combination of Haki-infused strikes that bypassed Blackbeard's devil fruit defenses entirely. Each blow landed with precision, targeting nerve clusters and pressure points with devastating effectiveness. Blackbeard roared in frustration, darkness exploding outward from his body in all directions. Black hole. The technique created a swirling vortex of gravitational force that began pulling everything toward Blackbeard. Stones, debris, even the air itself seemed to bend toward him. Luffy planted his feet, Haki anchoring him against the pull. You still don't get it, do you? Luffy called out over the howling void. Being Pirate King isn't about having the strongest devil fruit or the biggest crew. It's about being the freest person on the sea. Freedom is an illusion. Blackbeard shot back, gathering the absorbed energy for a counterattack. The only reality is power. Liberation. The condensed darkness erupted outward in devastating tendrils that tore through the ancient ruins. Luffy dodged most but was clipped by one, the impact sending him spinning through a stone wall. Blackbeard pressed his advantage, charging forward with darkness swirling around both fists. You're just like Roger, too soft to do what's necessary. That's why I'll be the true Pirate King. Luffy emerged from the rubble, blood trickling from a cut above his eye but his resolve undiminished. You're wrong about Roger. And you're wrong about what it means to be Pirate King. Their clash resumed with increased intensity, each fighter drawing on their ultimate techniques. Blackbeard's darkness threatened to consume everything it touched, while Luffy's Haki created barriers of pure willpower that even the void couldn't penetrate. Around them, the larger battle continued. Zoro and Sanji had engaged Blackbeard's commanders, preventing them from interfering in the duel between captains. On the beach and in the bay, the rest of the Straw Hats held their ground against waves of attackers from both the pirate armada and the marine fleet, which had landed forces of their own. The conflict had evolved into something approaching a small war, with Laugh Tale as its centerpiece and control of the world's future as its prize. Back at the ruins, Luffy found himself momentarily on the defensive as Blackbeard unleashed a particularly powerful combination of his two devil fruits, creating a swirling vortex of darkness that caused tremors in the earth beneath them. You can't win, Straw Hat. Blackbeard taunted. I have the power of two of the strongest devil fruits. What do you have? Luffy straightened, blood and sweat dripping from his face, but his eyes clear and focused. I have what you never will, teach. And what's that? Friends who believe in me. Dreams that aren't about control. And a will that's been carried forward for 800 years. As he spoke, something extraordinary happened. The giant Straw Hat began to glow with the same blue energy that had suffused the ancient system during its activation. The glow spread to Luffy himself, surrounding him with an aura that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. What trick is this? Blackbeard demanded, taking an involuntary step backward. No trick, Luffy replied, his voice overlaid with harmonics that echoed across time. Just the voice of all things responding to the true Pirate King. Around them, the ruins themselves began to resonate, ancient stone humming with awakened power. From the ground, the sea, the sky, energy converged on Luffy, channeling through the hat that had once belonged to Joy Boy himself. Blackbeard's expression shifted from confidence to uncertainty, then to fear as he felt the overwhelming force building before him. This isn't possible. No one has this kind of power. It's not my power, Luffy explained calmly. It's everyone's power. The connection that was stolen 800 years ago, the ability for all living things to communicate and exist in harmony. That's what One Piece really is, teach. Not control. Connection. With those words, Luffy stepped forward, the blue aura intensifying with each movement. Blackbeard's darkness seemed to recoil from it, unable to absorb or negate the energy that didn't stem from a devil fruit but from life itself. Stay back. Blackbeard shouted, genuine panic in his voice for perhaps the first time in his pirate career. He summoned a wall of darkness between them, thick enough to blot out the sun. Luffy didn't hesitate. He walked directly into the darkness, the blue aura parting it like fog before sunlight. It's over, Teach. It's not over until I say it's over. Blackbeard roared, desperation driving him to unleash his most devastating technique, a combination of concentrated darkness and seismic power that had the potential to tear the island apart. But as the attack formed between his hands, Luffy simply reached out and placed his palm against Blackbeard's chest. The contact was gentle, almost compassionate. Enough, Luffy said softly. The blue energy flowed from him into Blackbeard, neutralizing the destructive force the Emperor had gathered. More than that, it penetrated deeper, reaching the core of the man who had lived his life in pursuit of power at any cost. Blackbeard froze, his eyes widening as something fundamental shifted within him. Through Luffy's touch, he felt the voice of all things for the first time, felt the connections between all living creatures, the harmony that existed beneath the chaos he so embraced. What is this?" he whispered, his bombastic personality momentarily stripped away. "This is what you've been missing," Luffy answered. "The peace that makes freedom worth having." For a brief moment, understanding flickered across Blackbeard's face, a glimpse of what could have been had he chosen a different path. Then reality reasserted itself, and his expression hardened once more. "Pretty tricks won't save you, Straw Hat," he growled, though with noticeably less conviction. "I've come too far to back down now." He swung at Luffy with a darkness-enhanced fist, but the attack lacked its previous power. Luffy caught it effortlessly, the blue aura absorbing the darkness like water absorbing ink. "I'm not asking you to back down," Luffy clarified. "I'm asking you to see." With that, he delivered a single, perfectly placed strike to Blackbeard's solar plexus. The blow carried not just physical force but the concentrated will of the true Pirate King, a declaration of victory so absolute that denial became impossible. Blackbeard crumpled, his massive body hitting the stone floor with a resounding impact. The darkness receded, pulled back into his unconscious form, leaving only the man himself, formidable but ultimately mortal. Around the island, the battle seemed to pause as word of Blackbeard's defeat spread. His commanders, seeing their invincible captain fallen, lost the will to continue. One by one, they surrendered or retreated, their revolution against the new Pirate King crushed before it could truly begin. The marine forces, recognizing that their opportunity had passed, likewise withdrew to their ships. Without Blackbeard's darkness to exploit, they had no means of controlling the ancient system, and little appetite for a direct confrontation with the Straw Hat crew at full strength. As the sun began to set on Laugh Tale, casting long shadows across the battle-scarred beach, Luffy stood at the edge of the ruins, the giant straw hat still glowing softly on his head. His crew gathered around him, battered but unbowed, their expressions a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "Is it over?" Chopper asked hopefully. Luffy looked out at the retreating ships, then back at the ancient control center where the restoration process continued unabated. "This battle is. But the journey's just beginning." 3 days later, the Thousand Sunny prepared to depart from Laugh Tale. The island had served its purpose, the control system was fully operational, the worldwide restoration proceeding exactly as intended. There was no need to remain as guardians any longer. Robin had carefully documented everything they discovered about the ancient civilization and the true history, creating a comprehensive record that would be distributed to libraries and learning centers across the world. No more secrets, no more hidden truth. The cubic device had been integrated into the ruins themselves, becoming part of the self-sustaining system that would guide the world's geographical restoration over the coming years. As for Blackbeard, he had been taken into custody by revolutionary forces that arrived shortly after the battle, led by Sabo himself. "Are you sure you won't come to the revolutionary headquarters?" Sabo asked as he prepared to depart with his prisoner. Dragon would love to properly meet his son now that things have calmed down. Luffy grinned, adjusting the giant straw hat that he'd decided to continue wearing atop his own smaller one. "Tell him we'll catch up soon. But first, we have places to go." "Oh. Where to next for the Pirate King?" Sabo inquired with a knowing smile. Luffy pointed to the horizon. Everywhere. There's a whole new world forming out there. Someone's gotta explore it. As the Straw Hats made their final preparations to sail, they gathered on deck for one last view of the legendary island. Laugh Tale would remain, no longer hidden but open to all who wished to learn from its ancient wisdom. It feels strange, leaving, Nami commented, her cartographer's instincts already itching to map the transforming seas. This place is literally the end of the Grand Line, the goal we've been chasing for years. Not the end, Luffy corrected, his gaze fixed on the open water ahead. Just a checkpoint. The real adventure is what comes next. And what exactly is that, Captain? Zoro asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Luffy's grin widened. Freedom. Real freedom, not just for us, but for everyone. We're gonna sail this changing world and make sure the voice of all things is heard everywhere. We'll fight anyone who tries to build new walls or create new chains. That's what being Pirate King means. The crew exchanged glances, sharing smiles that acknowledged the audacity and perfect Luffiness of this new mission. So nothing really changes then, Sanji observed wryly, lighting a cigarette. We're still following our captain into impossible situations against overwhelming odds. Would we have it any other way? Jinbei chuckled. Super no way. Frankie shouted, striking his signature pose despite still healing injuries from the battle. Then it's settled, Luffy declared. Nami, set a course for adventure. The navigator laughed. That's not a real heading, Luffy. Sure it is. Just pick the direction that feels right. Nami shook her head in amused resignation, then pointed to a gap in the horizon where the sky met the sea in a particularly vibrant blue. That way looks promising. The currents are shifting there as the red line continues to sink. Perfect. Luffy bounded to his special seat on the figurehead, the giant straw hat silhouetted against the morning sun. Full speed ahead. As the Thousand Sunny's sails filled with wind, carrying them away from Laugh Tale and toward whatever awaited beyond, Luffy looked back only once at the island where he had claimed the title of Pirate King. His expression wasn't nostalgic or regretful, but excited, eager for whatever came next. 1 year ago, he had been an emperor, powerful but still chasing his dream. Now he was Pirate King, with a legacy 8 centuries in the making resting on his shoulders. But to Luffy, the weight didn't feel like a burden. It felt like wings. The world was changing. Continents were shifting, seas were merging, and humanity was awakening to connections long severed. And sailing at the forefront of this global renaissance was a pirate with 2 straw hats and an infectious grin, showing everyone the meaning of true freedom. Monkey D. Luffy, Pirate King. The inheritor of Joy Boy's will. The bringer of dawn. The freest person on the sea. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.